Hello, welcome to Car Simps. I'm Tyler Hoover, and I'm starting this whole new podcast with my friends right here. I'm not doing this alone. I actually have friends, two of them, Elliot Alvis and Rob Santori. Both of them I have known for a very, very long time, but they are going to be storytellers in this podcast. We'll explain it all in a little bit. But first, my two friends here. Elliot Alvis, I met in a burrito stand line, actually, about 8-9 years ago. And he is a computer chip maker with his father's company called Comtech. He's also a car enthusiast, works for Worldwide Auctions, and he has a hopelessly terrible personal life that is constantly an issue.
Well, I can't wait to open up about that on this podcast.
We all can't wait for that.
Rob Santori, he is a representative for fine spirits and liquors and wines all over the state of Kansas. He also organized the local Cars and Coffee, now evolved into Cars and Cockpits.
Correct.
And he is the guy on Facebook Marketplace who annoys the crap out of you with low balls. And then if you say yes to the low ball, he buys about 20-30% of the time. So I met Rob over 10 years ago because he showed up at my car dealership and lowballed me on an orange Mustang Mach 1 and annoyed the crap out of me.
Piece of garbage.
Yeah, so before Marketplace, you would go lowball IRL.
Well, I would be like, but not like big dealers. I would do like little dudes like
just little guys.
Yeah, like none of the big guys. I mean, I didn't know he was going to turn into this. I thought he was just going to be a schlep.
Oh, yeah. The next time I met you, it was when you were doing Cars and Coffee, and you like flicked me away like a booger before I was doing YouTube.
Did not.
Absolutely.
Did not.
Yes, at least Elliot.
I
was very early in my YouTube career, maybe had 10,000 subscribers, and Elliot gave me some words of encouragement in the burrito line, and we hit it off right at that
What are you talking about? I remember a perfectly nice thing where we invited you and to a little like after Cars and Coffee meeting, and you didn't talk to anybody, and you just stayed in your corner and ate your little food, and nobody knew who you were, and we went on with it.
I needed free food at the time, probably. I was just very hungry.
Nobody knew what was going on, but we're like, he seems nice. He could kill us, but he seems nice.
So I have that serial killer look, I suppose.
Sometimes
the eyes look a little beady depending on the lighting, which
when your thumbnails do bad,
Speaking of, so we've been working on the lighting of the garage, and obviously you might have noticed the set by now, because I went to completely stupid expense to recreate the old Top Gear new set. So I found the Rolls-Royce interior, had someone make the metal, the seats. Like I'm probably $5,000 into the furniture here, and then another $5,000. This is so stupid. Why am I so dumb with money? But the Bugatti coffee table here, which is actually a W12 engine from a Bentley Continental GT, I hope, and not a Volkswagen Phaeton, but we don't know. It's a W12 engine.
Somebody watching will let us know.
It's still cool.
So we have the table, we have the rug, we have the TV, much larger than the old Top Gear set.
That's right.
And we have a very interesting font that Jake has chosen to introduce the channel. It's Car Simps. Basically, we are all sort of simps to our cars. In some cases, simps to our women. I guess all three of us are simps to our women, absolutely.
Yes.
But also to cars very much. And we wanted to talk about other car simps and other car companies that people are simps to. So unlike other podcasts where they talk about the news or whatever catches their fancy or a guest, we may have guests, but I wanted these two, my friends here, to be storytellers, because Rob, he is an excellent storyteller. You hear him tell a story in a bar or a dinner and all that stuff. It is amazing. So with some research, I thought he would be great at this. And Elliot, well, he is an automotive historian, basically, and a lot of car knowledge to work at Worldwide doing the auctions and all that stuff, similar to what I do at Barrett-Jackson. So I thought he would be perfect for this. So for episode 1, we are going to start with Elliot. He's giving the history of the Corvette. Episode 2 is going to be Rob with his Italian background. It will be Enzo Ferrari. So it should be very entertaining. But before we get into that, I suppose, what's at the top of mind as far as Rob just got here with a new car, I think.
Yeah, that was at the top of my mind.
That was it. Yeah. Who's surprised? I've been going back and forth. I've been driving a clapped out, hoopty Land Rover, right-hand drive, actually, a VX Limited for the last few months.
Land Cruiser.
Cruiser, yes. Sorry, I said Rover.
Yes.
Land Cruiser.
And you found that where and
I
for how
found
much?
that in a Dillon's parking lot for $1,000.
That should show you what
nice
kind of
kid,
condition
super nice kid, very quiet. He said he bought it in Austin for like $8,000. And it was imported into there, and he said it just broke constantly,
which is un-Toyota-like.
Yeah, well, you would think it was leaking everything. It looks like it'd been through like 5 forests. It's all scratched up, scraped up, just everything. But inside, mechanically, it seemed okay. it seemed the interior's nice, the AC works, but when he was done with it, he said that it had like multiple leaks, that the head gasket had failed, and he was like, I don't want to put any more money into it.
So you drove it for 6 months with a bad head gasket, or that was
the
all
head
fixed?
gasket was fine.
Oh.
It turned out that it was just everything else that was bad. Like
I
everything
see.
else was leaking on it. It was. I put $3,000 into it, but it drives great. But to be honest, I'm a 49-year-old balding Italian. It's hard to drive in that thing every day.
So you've gone from Toyotas, which before you had a big Toyota Tundra that you drove
Which I
into
love.
the ground.
Which you never wanted to get rid of.
Somehow
I
his
should never got
Tundra
rid of
broke all the time. So now you think you're going to go into the loving embrace of 10-plus-year-old BMWs. What is it? What year?
So it's a 16 640i.
So the loving embrace of BMWs at 10 years old to get you, because your job is driving all around town to make sure people are stocked up on all your spirits, wines, and liquors and things. And that's going to get you where you need to go.
Well, between that, the Land Cruiser, and
Your NASCAR?
well, no.
That's his other thing. He sold some perfectly good usable cars and bought a NASCAR that you've yet to sit in, right? You don't fit in
I've
it.
sat in it. I actually pulled it into the garage.
Wow, what a purchase.
Well, it's okay. It's a little different than what I was expecting. I mean, I knew what I was expecting. Okay, quick backstory so I don't just bore everybody, but I grew up a Bill Elliott fan. He was a big, a lot of that's a name that a lot of NASCAR people know. Sure. Followed him all the way through when I lived in Connecticut, went to Pocono, went to a bunch of cool tracks, Watkins Glen, and when he retired, Casey Kane took over his seat, and I became a huge Casey Kane fan. So I'm like, as a kid, you always wanted to have one of those. That's really cool to say you have one. And so when Kane retired, I kind of, I still watch NASCAR, not crazy like I used to, but I watch it on the weekends. I'll DVR it and all that. But I always said that if I ever found a Casey Kane raced car, that I would, if it was not crazy stupid priced, I would buy it. For whatever reason, I just told myself that. And I was scrolling on Facebook Marketplace.
It's not street legal.
No.
It showed up with 4 flat tires. I stored it for a little while in the hangar. Mm-hmm. All the tires went flat. It leaked pretty much everything. It is very difficult to start. And you got rid of some really nice cars that you could use every day to buy it.
Yeah, I had a green 66 Fastback that I sold to a buddy of mine.
Instead of me, because I said I wanted the 66 Fastback.
That was cool.
So both of these guys at one point I've unfriended on Facebook in anger at them because of what they've done. Yes. Elliot because of his disastrous personal life, but Rob because of his cars. So
my penchant for not selling Tyler cars.
Right. So, but you do have one cool car sort of on your shirt. Yes. Your 911.
I do. I have 2. I have a 2007 C4S. And then a 2016 manual GTS.
That thing's awesome.
That one's awesome. I mean, that was what I ended up getting. I had a Ferrari F430 for like 2 months, and I thought that's what I wanted. I wanted a red, bright Ferrari convertible to be fast and be seen in. And then it was miserable. It was a beautiful car.
Well, before that, so Rob actually sold me his 355. That's the car that I burned to the ground, or actually, shipped to California and Parker vehicle versions. It wasn't his fault. He was driving it and fuel line busted. And it's your fault, actually, for all those years not taking care of the fuel line recall, because I had it for 3 months.
Not that long.
And I was planning on, after Monterey Car Week, leaving it in California for it to have the recall done at a Ferrari dealer and then shipping it home. So I was like a week away from having it done. You had it for years, never did it. The car burned to the ground, and it's your fault.
You knew about the recall, and you didn't do it either.
I had a plan.
I had a plan. Your plan worked. You probably made like $30,000 off that fire.
I had it for a couple of months, and I was going to get it done after Car Week in California. You had it for years, and you never got a
do that.
free
You cannot do
recall
that. Your
done.
fault, but I had a plan.
You never got it done.
So you had concepts of a plan.
You killed that car.
That's what
your team had to take the blame.
His thing made total sense. It just didn't quite make it there.
Well, I didn't even know it needed a recall.
I think that's what he's getting.
Ferrari didn't send me anything in the mail that said, "Hey, your 355 is due."
Elliot. Yes. Elliot has quite a fleet of cars that he doesn't drive because he daily drives his Toyota Prius.
Yes.
So he has.
I know, it's kind of odd.
He's a big Corvette enthusiast. That's why I thought this would be a very easy home run for Elliot to do the history of the Corvette in episode 1. But he has a C4 Corvette that he has not driven since high school?
No, I haven't not driven it since high school, but I haven't driven it in at least like a year and a half. at least.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
I don't
on
think
the
I've ever
road
seen it
in
not,
years and years and years.
It needs some love after sitting for so long, especially after I went to college and stuff like that.
Why park a C4 Corvette?
Well, because I started getting into all these other cars that people have known me for, and like I started fixing money on my Volvo. I have a V70R. I was
still have
fixing
that?
something. Oh yeah,
I thought you sold that.
no,
Okay.
I'm not done yet, folks. It's a crowd
When you
favorite.
brought that yellow car, you brought the C4 to Cars
I brought
and
the
Coffee.
C4 to Cars and
It
Coffee.
came to one.
Yeah.
I remember
Yes.
seeing it out.
and he has a Car Trek veteran. That's what his shirt is. The
Yes.
Maserati
Yep.
from Car Trek 2.
Which I have also fixed because it was, when it arrived, it was in kind of rough shape. If you've seen the show, that's how it was. But now it has a full interior and runs and drives, and I love that thing. Like I said, it's so much fun because that's my Cars and Coffee car, especially
cool.
because even if you haven't watched the show, it just looks like a Hot Wheels car, and all the kids get excited about it. It sounds cool. It's fun. It's the last manual Maserati. You can't really go wrong with it. I've also got, they're my dad's, but I kind of am the only one who drives them anymore due to his health. So
the 54 Corvette
Right.
has seen thousands and thousands.
Yes.
Elliot's probably logged the most mileage in a first generation, like an early Corvette, of anyone alive probably at this point.
Yes. Yes,
And so he has the 54?
54, we've got a 60. That's, the big option car as far as that goes. And it's like perfect, like NCRS quality. We have the Model A Roadster. It's really nice. I know those aren't worth a whole lot of money, but they're just fun.
Right.
And this one is really
So when I
quite
bought
nice.
my 62, he crapped all over it because it's
you
the one
really?
nobody
I didn't
wants.
crap.
Nobody
Well,
wants the
no,
62.
he-
they want all the chrome and the bling and everything
you
else.
sent me a message. You said, "Why is this so cheap?" And I was like, "Well, it's because it's like the last year of the C1. It's kind of like people were a little over it. It's like the money is like
You could have
before then
said
and after
well
that."
bought because we're going to get into the year to year of the Corvettes because you got 62.
I didn't
you
know
get
you'd bought it yet. I thought
you get the
were just
327
You have to
carrying
assume.
over to the next year, so you get a nicer engine. You
Right.
get less of the chrome and the bling and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I thought it was great for $45,000.
It's an amazing car
That's
for that
cheap.
For that money.
Yeah,
That's
It is
cheap.
And
I've
like I
had it
said,
for a year and a half.
I was misled. You were just kind of asking in general, why is this so cheap? You didn't say, I just bought this. Why was it so
Because
cheap?
I wanted
you
your
know that's a
unvarnished opinion.
and
I
my
wanted to see what
unvarnished
you
opinion
thought.
was like,
And you got
and
it.
it just
F the
crapped
62
all over me. The Corvette expert was like, "Why did you buy the 62?"
Well, that's what I get. But anyway, yes. As far as other things going on with me, we both just got back from auctions just weeks ago. Simultaneous auctions,
We
will
were
say.
competing with each other.
Yes.
So Worldwide had their live stream with Elliot. They let him drive the cars up on the block when he's doing his commentary, which I'm very jealous of, But he's kind of like texting and driving for the auction because he's pulling up. He's got the microphone. Hey, it's interesting.
It's
Fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a handful, and it's gotten better now that they've given me a lavalier mic instead of a handheld mic.
Oh, there you go.
But it still is, it's something different, and I think it spices up the coverage and stuff like that. And not to mention, it's fun. You get to be actually behind the wheel of the cars you're talking about because you get to be on stage, luckily, and pointing and gesturing at things.
Right.
For our coverage, if I'm not driving it, it's kind of just multi-camera angles of the car. So when we're in it, we can showcase a little bit more.
Most auction coverage is people just sitting in a chair talking about
Right.
it. So it's unique in your sense that you get to drive them. Unique in Barrett Jackson, where we're actually walking around, pointing out the cars, doing things, and getting some FaceTime and actually touching, getting up close and not getting too excited touching them, obviously. But Tyler Grimes is texting Potter right now saying, "I don't know, man." So I guess Jake is multitasking.
What's happening over there, Jake?
Jake is our tech guy, and he can chime in whenever he wants, I guess, on the screen. But
I'm waiting for the umbrella dude out of
being
Fortnite
engaged,
just to drop down.
We've already lost
happening here?
Jake so far.
Wow.
So
Are we that excited?
we've already
Like,
lost
geez.
Jake. He's texting
yeah,
his friends.
He's texting. He's heard this stuff. He's over it.
So maybe we should get into story time then. And this is what I wanted. The idea came up with to make it more unique than other podcasts. So I'm thinking of long form where people love the murders and people talking about the murders. They're talking about a specific topic. And honestly, I don't have time to prep and do a crazy outline to tell you a story about a person or an event or a certain model of car or a car company. And I really wanted to give these guys assignments and then just be entertained by them, much hopefully as you are. I haven't done this yet, so we'll see. Elliot could totally suck at this, and then we just replace him.
I could blow this.
Like I fly
Oh,
in
yeah.
John
Both
Ficar
of
for the
us.
rest of these,
This could be the only one of these we do. Next week, you might see two different people here.
could be.
But I gave Elliot the assignment of the history of the Corvette, and I told him to sort of paint between the lines as far as the people, the strange things about it, what could have happened, what may have not happened, and stuff that we may not know, because obviously people know the 1953 Corvette the first year, and they didn't make very many of them, and it was a six-cylinder. It was absolute garbage. But there's a lot more to learn about the Corvette, and this is Mr. Corvette right here. So
thank you. I hope, but yeah, I made my Maserati shirt.
Yes.
So how do we
prepared.
begin? In the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning, there was the heaven and the earth, and then God said, "Let there be Corvette." No,
That's exactly what he said.
no, but it was unveiled as a concept car at GM's Motorama in January of '53. So this was like a thing where, like if you see a car at a show these days, it's years away from production, something like that. The Corvette debuted at the show as being ready in 6 months to a year, projected. I was actually ended up being ready in 6 months. And they were just kind of garnering public opinion of it because, again, kind of a concept car. The Motorama, as you know, is GM's festival of showing what they've been working on and future designs. And of course, this was the key age of futurism. One of the things that Jake has pulled up on the screen here is the actual concept car.
Well, and Chevy didn't build a sports car. Really, there wasn't an American sports car, right?
And that's exactly what it was. So a lot of people were kind of like, "What is this?" And really, what it came from was Harley Earl had noticed, the designer of the car. We'll get more into him later. A lot of these guys had come back from World War II. Had been in Europe, and they'd brought back some sporty cars with them. They had some Jaguars, the XK120. There were sports cars in Europe. People were motoring for fun over there. Something we hadn't done yet and didn't see happening over here unless you imported a car. So obviously Chevrolet had the sight with Harley Earl's, nudging that it was like, hey, these guys are bringing sports cars in and enjoying them. Why don't we keep some of that money here? We could make a car for fun. A car that is designed to be sporty, that you go out, that's not practical. It's not your family hauler. It's meant for the fun of driving.
But it wasn't sporty.
It wasn't, and it was. I will say that. So you kind of already outlined the first specs of the early Corvettes. So 53, it's an inline 6-cylinder, 2-speed power glide transmission. But the thing is, you got to remember, because it was all fiberglass, it was actually really light and for the time quite fast. Magazines had said, I believe it was Car and Driver, that it was faster than the Jaguar XK120.
At top speed?
I don't know about top speed, but it was tracking.
Because the top speed was the 4-speed. That was the 120 miles an
They
hour.
had more gearing, but they did a track test, and I think it was heavily weighted towards the Americans.
Obviously, Harley Earl showed up and slipped 20.
Oh, yeah.
Or dug up dirt. J. Edgar Hoover came in and found the dirt on the journalist
absolutely.
or whatever. And
But, and then there's a lot of things that also lead it to be not sporty. It's pretty much on a Bel Air's frame.
Right.
Everything about it, a lot of it is the Bel Air, minus most of the engine, because it's the inline 6-cylinders they dubbed the Blue Flame. It had 3 side draft carburetors versus the 1. But 150 horsepower back then is actually pretty good.
A light car, sure.
Yeah. And like I said, I've been in them. I've gone fast in them. We did the great race in my dad's 54. And the thing can move, surprisingly.
Is yours a 2-speed power glide?
They all are, from 53 to 55.
I just can't fathom how that works. 2 speeds. Like, I just don't.
They're really long.
So you're not going anywhere off
You
the
just sort of,
stoplight. Like,
it revs a lot. And
revs
then
a lot, and
you
it's
let
a
off the
one
gas.
big thunk
and
shift.
it shifts eventually with a big thunk.
And the funny part is why they went with the power glide at the time in 53, because this engine made so much power and so much torque, which I know it doesn't sound like it today. The manual transmissions and clutches that they had that existed at the time could not handle it. They wanted to put a manual in it, but the power glide was the only thing that could handle the power of the Corvette, which is kind of funny because it is the opposite of what we go to think of when we think of Corvettes. It's always, it's a V8 with, stick shift. It's like, no, that's a 6-cylinder with an automatic. I kind of talked to Jake. One of the other interesting things at the show, because it was, a design show, believe it or not, they actually had...
Jake awake? Or is he texting Grimes again? Okay, he's engaged.
No, Jake,
yes.
if you could bring it back.
He's marginally engaged.
All right.
There were a couple of other cars at that same Motorama that shared a lot of the design, both Harley Earl cars. So remember GM, that's all one big company, right? But back then, the individual brands were a lot more competitive. There wasn't all the parts sharing and different things. It was a lot of, hey, this is our model and we do this and we make it this engine. And it was kind of a competition between the brands. But Harley Earl had designed a Buick version of the car called the Buick Wildcat. And it had a V8 and it used, great styling and stuff like that. I don't know if that's
Great
it.
styling?
That doesn't it.
What is that? Is that a kid's a toy car?
It might be the Wildcat.
What?
But then they also had the Pontiac Bonneville before it existed. And it looks a lot more like a 54 Corvette.
What is that?
This is the Pontiac Bonneville, and what was under the hood of this is an inline 8 flathead. So the other two concept cars that were kind of competing to be this America's sports car, both had 8 cylinders, but Chevy, being top dog, obviously was like, nope, we're taking it, and it's going to have the 6. We've already got all the stuff for it.
Was the concept car this pixelated?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
If you go back and
there we go.
Better.
Okay.
That's better.
All right.
But
Still
see,
ugly.
that thing's pretty cool. You can see the design language.
I mean, yeah, the design's there, but
it's there. And it's just interesting. These cars, they brought these cars out, and like I said, the public was pretty excited about them, but apparently most excited about the 53 Corvette. And like I said, this kind of goes into what that entailed. So remember, it was ready for production. It's 6 months, which is it would be impossible today, pretty much.
How long do we wait for the Ford Bronco to come back? 10 plus years,
at least.
And it kept getting
the
teased.
Volkswagen
and then I think
bus over
finally
10 years.
after an actual design, I would say 4 more years after we saw a concept,
And then we were teasing the mid-engine Corvette,
my
the
gosh.
C8 for
forever.
Jeez. Okay.
They
Then-
just
so-
whet your appetite.
For the first year, they only made 300. They weren't really a full production. They were kind of a production exercise, I would call them.
Right.
And so I think they misjudged public opinion a little bit. I think people liked it. They said they'd never seen anything like it. Wow, that's really cool. Did people show up to buy them? Not really. So much so that GM started to kind of have to push them on dealers and give them away to try to make them look cool. So they would give them to celebrities of the time. They gave one to John Wayne, who did not like the car for various reasons, other than also he couldn't fit in it. So
Yeah, it does look small. But how much was one of these back? Comparative to whatever their standard car would be.
another interesting fact. So yeah, that was the thing that was about them. People didn't know what is a sports car, the general public, and they were like $3,800 at the time, which was only like $300 less than a Cadillac, which back then there was an established nice car. If you had a Cadillac, that was it was America's Rolls Royce. And so now you've got a car that nobody can see the point of, that's really expensive and doesn't have door handles, doesn't have real windows, can't really hold anything. Everyone was like, what am I going to do with this thing? So sales were absolutely horrible. Like I said, they couldn't give the 53s away.
I'm still picturing John Wayne in this thing. Because he's
it's
taller
in the
than me,
whole
so he'd
thing,
have been
yeah.
sticking out over
my
the
head
windshield.
sticks out over the windshield.
The Duke.
Yeah.
Just complaining.
I don't know if you can see if Jake has an interior shop. The steering wheels are so comically large in these
they're massive.
that you have to, I would describe, floss yourself underneath to get in, even at my size.
And that's because of no power steering.
No power steering, you get a big wheel, get leverage.
Yes.
But like I said, it's a beautiful car, but it is impractical. And like I said, people didn't know what sports cars were for. So it was just like, well, why would I want this when I could have this, nicer thing?
And I imagine the people that did know, they wanted the European stuff and they were importing it.
They already had a sports car. They were
Established.
They were way ahead of
there we
everybody.
go.
Yeah,
Look
see
at
everybody.
that. Look at
you can
it's
see
the
the steering
scale.
wheel actually pretty
How
much
do I even get in there?
Pretty much touches the seat, but those seats are extra springy. When you sit in them, they compress quite a bit.
I would need Ozempic to get in there. There's just no way around that.
See, and I know today that the big modifications with these Corvettes and the customs is to make them more roomy. So they put in the smaller, less cushioned seat, even extend the interiors out a little bit because it is ridiculously cramped. But one of the humble beginnings there.
Yes, and one of the things, because I did the great race with my dad for so many years in one of these, one of my memories was that after a few days, if he wore the same pants for a few days, he would have steering wheel marks on his shorts because the wheel just would rub
I believe it.
all day. It was like, you can only imagine. I guess people were a little bit smaller framed back then.
Because you would do 1,000 miles in that.
Or more.
And I remember telling a story where you drove through hail or something like that.
really?
A hailstorm,
Yes.
no top.
Yeah, so that we can save that for another time. But yes, we took one of these. We didn't bring the top because we were in the car for 2 weeks and you have more storage if you put stuff back there. We were going through the mountains, some kind of in Colorado, and it was raining. You get wet, and of course, like we said with the windshield, it only covers to like here. So you're all kind of hunkering down in the windshield, but when it started to hail, that was an experience because you can't stop. It's a time speed distance rally. So, you just got to go and deal with it. And of course, you don't have to worry about the car because it's fiberglass. So only you are getting dented.
So the 53, a giant
53,
dud.
giant dud. So,
Dud, sort of like Elliot's
Oh, here
first
it
date
is.
with women every
I
time.
cannot believe it
But
took
for
this
whatever
long.
reason,
Like it really can't.
whoever perseveres, and then the second date gets better, right?
yes, usually. Almost
Wait.
always. No, yeah, but of course.
Wait, hold on.
My last girlfriend had this horror story of it. She apparently did not like the first date, and which was news to me.
Well,
It
no, wait,
seemed
no.
like
Just,
things were
just so
going
we're
normal for you.
just to be clear, though,
news to me.
this last girlfriend is completely out, right? Because she's
No.
probably going to watch this.
She might.
So let's make sure she's out before we last girlfriend this.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Current
we may not see you
confusing
next week.
relationship situation.
Okay,
Like
that's
I
better.
said,
Thank you.
his love life is a total basket
Oh,
case.
it's so
Total
great.
basket.
I know, and our large women viewing audience, this is just going to kill me.
Wait a minute. Are you talking like
Large.
fat women? Like large women? Is that what you-
Yes. No.
We'll take any type.
Anyway.
That's John Wayne.
Oh, yeah. See,
Oh, there you go, the Duke.
What,
well, I think
Well,
isn't he standing
think
behind
this
it?
thing
Or no, I guess
doesn't-
he'd be in it.
Fit me all that well. Yeah, that's
that was a horrible
Anyway,
song.
you can
That was
also tell
terrible.
by his
Good Lord.
face. He didn't love
Oh
it.
my God. Don't do that again.
won't.
Please don't ever do that again.
okay.
Yeah. So even though they couldn't sell the 53s, they went ahead and decided to put them into full production for 54. I really
Who pushes that through?
the higher ups at General Motors.
Well, I know
really don't have
they
a
made
reason.
a big investment in fiberglass
Right.
production.
And so I think
the whole
that's
plant dedicated
yes.
to that, right?
And so yeah, then by the way, I do mention they are building these in Flint, Michigan, at not a very big plant. They actually had a lot of trouble bonding everything. All the fiberglass was smoothed by hand. I mean, this was like a real big undertaking for
And
the
I
company.
remember, like, there's the Chevy Cameo pickup truck, which has the fiberglass fins added on. It was the first luxury pickup truck. And because they were struggling so much to sell Corvettes, and this fiberglass factory was just like, doo-doo-doo, they started making the panels to give fins to the Cameo pickup truck just to keep the factory busy, because these Corvettes, well, they sucked.
Yeah. And like I said, it was, yeah. So anyway, for whatever reason, they decided to make like 3,000 of them for 54, which is a wild business move for something you couldn't sell 300 of. But they did a few things to spice them up. Like you could get them in different colors. 53s were all white with red interior. 54, you could get them in red, pennant blue, black, and white.
So your dad's is red.
My
right?
dad's is red.
Okay.
And I think it looks great. I think all of them have red interior no matter what you do. But of course, these don't sell well yet again. But because Chevy has such a large dealer network and has such control over their dealer network, they were still forcing them. You could pretty much go to any dealership in the country and they'd have a Corvette on the showroom. It might have brought people in. You'd leave in a Bel Air. You go, that's neat. Let's get something with door handles. Not a very tough sell. Or, it was a tough sell. It wasn't a tough sell for anything else. If anything, it made everything else on the lot look good.
Right. So 53, there was 300.
300.
And those are worth about, what, 300 grand
Those are worth
now?
about $300,000 now. Because
$300,000 because they're
we
so
all-
rare. It's the birth of the Corvette, but it's it's something to just park and look at and say, hey, that's the first year Corvette. So
Right.
54,
54s are worth about $100,000 now.
how many made?
3,000-ish. And of course,
3,000.
you got to remember people were throwing these cars away, so there's nowhere near that many now.
Sure.
I mean, I would imagine there's 1,500 left or less. Because it was something as a Corvette guy, I hadn't even ever seen one until until my dad got his. That was the first time I'd ever seen one. They're not even with that large of number. People don't take them out, don't take them to shows. And I'll go into that because when the next body style, but 55 was the interesting thing. So 55 is when Zora Arkus Duntov, another character we'll dive into here, kind of had an idea and was like, hey, we have a V8 now. Why don't
Go
we
ahead and dive into them, actually. So we've been doing a lot of nuts and bolts
Yeah.
with cars. So,
Well,
this,
I wanted to talk about Harley Earl a little bit first while we're still on this car.
Okay.
Because Harley Earl, the interesting thing about him was he was a design guy. He used to work at a coach building factory, basically, with his dad. It was his dad's factory. It later on got bought out by Fisher, I believe.
because I remember, I think the well-known fact is he couldn't draw, right?
Yeah. Right. And I think that's what it is, but he would still insist on doing things by hand. He would make clay models and things even before, in the 20s, he was working with clay.
Because you would think like every automotive designer is like Chip Foose and they're able to draw it out and all that stuff.
Right.
And Harley Earl was not that guy.
Is that him?
Yeah, I know exactly. He was not doing the Chip Foose marker drawings that turn out all cool, in like 10 minutes. Yes, that is the man right there.
Look at that.
So he started off for GM. Basically, somebody had gone to the coach building place because this was at a time when in the 20s, Cadillac would send a lot of their bodies off to be coach built because that was what made them nice. It's just like the European cars would do. You'd send a frame and engine and everything, and the body would be built to a customer's
Sort of like
spec.
how people deck out their yachts or private aircraft today, because cars were schmancy then. They were a rich person's plaything.
Right. So he got basically discovered by a GM executive there. They asked him to come do an experiment. Hey, can you design this 27 Cadillac for us? He did, and of course, it's not a crazy departure from the cars at the time, but remember, back in the 20s, especially, even 30s, every car looked the same. It was function over, first. It was engineers going, well, the wheels do need to go here, fenders do need to go over the wheels, and you just ended up with every car having a straight vertical radiator, huge fenders on all four corners, and wire wheels. It's just what they looked like. Now, he obviously did, as much as you could with that kind of thing back then. Fast forward a few years, GM hires him as the first ever person to be like what they called their, I'm forgetting the name of it now. It was basically like paint and color department, but it was essentially the style department. They renamed it later. And they let him kind of be a design guy. Now, he wasn't actually respected in the offices at the time because they would kind of say, oh, look, here's this sissy who's coming to make all the cars pretty. Because the other execs and engineers, they were like, it works. This is what cars look like. So here he comes and he decides to make the world's first concept car. So that hadn't even existed yet.
So did you find any dirt on this guy?
Nothing good.
He would go on big acid trips, and that's how he came up with this kind of car design.
Like
all I knew is he was just apparently he just was one of those savant visionaries that was like, this is what the future is going to look like, and I'm going to make it happen. It was almost.
But I always pictured it because obviously he's not drawing it out, so he has these artists that are drawing for him, and he's like, I have an idea of like a big snot nose or whatever, whatever. And then it's no, not that, and just like bidding, no,
totally see that.
Like he's telling the people, the drawers, to create his just from his head, which is it's so odd.
It is very odd, especially because it would be so easy for somebody to not get it right because they don't have the vision. They're not in your head. There it is, the Buick Y Job, which I think is a hilarious name for a car.
Good boy.
Yes.
I'm not even going to touch that.
But that was in 1938, so this is way beyond.
That is not something Elliot ever does as a Y Job.
No, I don't do that.
That's another problem with Elliot.
I let you go for that one.
Thank you. That's
It does look kind of phallic too.
I think he had a thing.
I mean, clearly. It just kind of does.
But this car,
where's the headlights?
They're one of the first cars with hidden headlamps. They are right there. But unlike the Cord, which also had hidden headlamps in 36 and 37, these were electronic. So another Corvette thing that would go on. It had electric windows, something that was unheard of in 38. Anyway, the thing about this, though, is the importance of the concept car, which he invented. And of course, GM was like, I don't know what the point of this is it's which we all know today. You show what could be, and you bring it to a show.
Well, nowadays concept cars are just like, hey, this looks amazing. We'll never build it.
Yeah, always.
We'll never ever build this. This doesn't make any sense. But here's an amazing design, amazing thing that we want to do. Here's sort of the headlight from it in this crossover.
Right.
And we're just like, oh,
God.
really,
That's almost the perfect thing for a future
Which is
episode.
always, one of my favorite
I guess
things
recently Cadillac has the Celestiq. And
Yes.
it's $300,000 electric car.
And it looks exactly like its concept car.
It actually was close.
Yeah.
The Lyriq, it looks very similar used for $35,000, which Elliot's father drives a
have one of
Lyriq.
those.
So
Yeah.
yes,
Same
same
with
as
Lyric folks as well.
No,
Yes.
I like that.
This is the same car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
You
really
like this
better,
Y Job.
better
looks better
from this way.
pixelated
Well,
to
it
you,
doesn't look
so-
like it's just going straight into my
Jake,
mouth.
you have to select images that are like above,
It's
I don't
kinda-
know, 800 things.
What? They didn't have high def pictures back then?
Yeah, that
Better
might be
pic-
why I like it, is because with my bad eyes and the pixelation, it looks great.
It's one of those things where you looked at when they were kids. That was the images you had to unfocus your vision to see the dolphin or whatever.
Show them
it ended up to
a
be.
Chevy Cameo pickup truck.
Yeah, I wanted to. I had never seen
You were
one of
texting
those.
Grimes when I was talking
This
about
is
the Chevy
new to
Cameo.
me too. I've never seen one.
Yeah.
Now I'm excited about the thoughts of it.
Well,
Harley Earl, there's like they sort of make the 55s looking fins on the pickup truck. It's the first
Okay,
luxury
that's-
pickup truck.
That's kind of cool. It looks. I don't know how you'd fit a human in it, but it's cool.
Well,
everything
It
is
looks,
like you
well,
said,
look at
very
the size of the. I guess there's a guy in there. He's in there, or a girl. Or
So
Lighter
what,
frame
what I
folks.
remember about Harley Earl is his design coming from things that he saw, like in World War II, with my 49 Cadillac, which has the twin fins to look like the P-38 Lightning.
Yes.
And that's the birth of the fins. So he's credited with the fins. He's credited with the concept car, which I did not know.
The entire concept of the concept car.
But how did he sell the Corvette to executives and keep it going?
Like I said, I wish I had a great answer for you other than it was kind of one of those, this'll work, fellas. Kind of one of those, 50s cigarette,
Well, what was his big
boardroom
hit
meeting.
as far as his proof of concept? Like obviously he needs to have some kind of winning track record for people to be like,
Yeah.
hey,
I'm trying to think of what it was. I mean, he was already well established. Like I said, GM made an entire department that didn't exist.
I mean, the
for him.
Cadillac and the Fins was a
Cadillac
big
knocked
deal.
it off.
Yeah, I feel like that's it.
Fins were going well. Every one of his designs in passenger cars, I'm not even counting sports cars that don't make sense, were well received. And another thing he decided and figured out,
Is
which
this a
smart-
worldwide image, by
that
the
does
way,
look
Jake?
like worldwide. Yeah, that's
Brought to you
It
by
is.
Worldwide.
It is for
favorite
sure.
worldwide Barrett Jackson images. Like, is this?
Hey, we'll have equal
good
opportunity.
advertising.
I've got some Barrett Jackson stuff in
Okay,
here.
all right.
I think it was just one of those that everything he'd done had been well received so far, and this design was by all reps. Now, why they didn't just can it after the first year, I don't know. Other than the fact that they just had too much money invested in.
Yeah, the investment had to be huge.
Now, like I said, as you've pointed out, first car, not very hot. 6-cylinder, 2-speed power glide. Now, by 55, the car looks identical, but you can kind of see it in this image. The only thing on the side is a large V in the Chevrolet, and it denotes that the car had a V8. So for the last year of this body style, they decided to cram a V8 in there, finally, right? But it's a little too late. The car is already not doing well. I mean, abysmally.
So this is where that Zora guy comes in,
This
right?
is where the Zora guy comes in, but also where GM doubles down in an interesting move, which is, again, today they would just look at the numbers, the board would say no, and this car would be in the history
Well,
books.
because like with the Thunderbird.
Exactly. So
55, 56, 57.
Exactly.
And then they're like, we can't build a two-door sort of sporty car anymore. And then they went with the square bird that has a big back seat. And it's hideous.
Exactly.
Just
But
killed it.
that's exactly what
That-
did it. I mean, we all know the Thunderbird came out and it was doing great because guess what? It had door handles. It had
Right.
windows.
It looked bigger,
It,
so
it
it
had
gave-
these things that people seem to want in their cars, and they sold like hotcakes. So instead of going, man, they outdid us. Oh, also the Thunderbird had a V8. Key. Zora Stuntov convinced them to put a V8 in this one, but by this point, like I said, the Corvette was so done and GM was so done with it, they only made 755.
So Zora's Russian, Ukrainian.
Zora is
was-
he's a Belgian Russian Jewish designer,
Okay.
engineer.
and
Really, I should say.
how does he get to GM?
So he, believe it or not, without going into a massive backstory about him, he was a racing driver and other things, which we'll go into, and is one of his major impacts on the car. But he actually went to the 53 Motorama, saw the 53 Corvette, and said, I like this. How do I become a part of this team? Somehow or another, he got hooked up and in. He started working for GM. Now, not right away. He was not just, okay, you're the Corvette guy. He was an engineer. He started working with the program. By then, they also invented a new position for him as we go on. Basically, he was the director of high performance cars, which again, the Corvette is the only.
But he had
high-performance
some racing and engineering
He
cred
had-
before that. It wasn't just some
Yes.
dude that walked up like,
No.
I could do a better job. Hire me.
He was a known designer, engineer, and racer. He ended up racing at Le Mans like 5 times himself, which is crazy, especially for back in the day.
Oh, Jesus, it's going to crinkle. Oh,
Yeah.
No. Oh, no.
Have fun, listeners.
Time out, everybody.
That's why they don't have bottled water on podcasts. I just realized.
You
'cause
just
that's,
learned that. Mm-hmm.
Look, mine doesn't crinkle.
Oh,
See?
you're right. You got expensive water. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you.
That's another thing about Elliot is he has a water thing.
I don't
I
think it's
didn't
a
know
water.
this. He has a shower thing. I know he has a shower thing.
No,
Definitely
it's
has
not
a
in a water
shower
sport.
thing.
But no, you have this thing where you can't stay.
I'm just thirsty all the time. It's like a
you
disease.
can't like it's a hydration thing
many
where
times do
he
you pee
constantly
in
needs to drink water. So, but it's like a thing, isn't it? When,
Yeah, I mean, it's undiagnosed, which my parents went. I mean,
Well, there has to be something to
they
it.
checked to see if I had
because
diabetes because it's a sign of that, but I do
because
not.
you pee a lot because
Oh,
you
yeah, I
drink,
drink-
like,
it
like
just
you
goes
drink
out and go right through.
like he drinks gallons and gallons.
I've
and gallons.
had
So you do a road trip with him,
probably 3 liters of water
You're
today.
stopping to pee quite a bit,
Yeah.
but he's a good driver and in good company. So
I've had probably 3 liters of water today already, which
Well,
is
I mean, that's what they say.
it's good for you.
Very
It is-
good for you.
yeah. But anyway, so Zora is taking like I said, he's going to take his engineering stuff. He's working his way up through GM. And what he does now is basically he's having more and more influence on the Corvette, being the leader of the high performance division of General Motors. And by Corvette getting the green light for 56, to everyone's surprise, Harley Earl changes the design a little bit, and it becomes the Corvette we all know. If you ask somebody on the street, hey, what's the first year of Corvette? The image they will describe to you is the 56. So believe it or not, it's not a different body than the 53 through 55s. They just basically, like you said, kind of with the truck, they shaved the fins off of it. Essentially, they removed the rock guards from the headlights. It's not really all that different when you look at it like that. And they painted a cove on the side.
Well, and of course, automakers, they were changing designs year to year to year, every year to do something a little bit different. So you have
and that
the
was another,
Tri-5 Chevys, and all that stuff.
And this is where you start to see this year, this period in the Corvette, every year something does change. And that was another Harley Earl idea, is to make a change every year so that people would associate body styles by year and give them a reason to want the next year.
You have the old one with single headlights?
Right.
But you must be poor. You need the new Corvette.
It does work.
It works. And like I said, so this is the iconic car we all know now as the first Corvette. It's not, but it's the first one that actually sold because, look, door handles and windows. That's all it took.
It's just the door handles. Had they only known
the steering wheel
4
shrink
years
a
ago,
little
the
bit.
door
In
handles.
fact, no, on the 56s and 7s especially, it's the same, and it has the same dash where all the gauges go all the way across pretty much to the passenger side where you have to like lean over.
There has to be something else that did it because the door handles alone.
No, it's the styling. I mean, look at it.
I mean, it looks the same as the other one.
Have you ever seen an image of a drive-in movie theater in your life that doesn't picture one of these?
But I would have.
It became this.
But wouldn't it have been one of those?
Here's the thing. Rob doesn't get Corvettes.
I try.
true.
You've
He's a
never
Ford man.
owned a Corvette. You've always been a Ford guy.
You're right. I've had 111 cars now, and I've never had a Corvette. I don't dislike them because I will say
It sounds like
And
you
I
buy
was
those.
hoping,
well, you would think.
Elliot is a crazy Corvette.
Yeah.
And I was hoping he was going to show up in costume, but he
should've.
did the New Balances and the jean shorts and
That would've
everything
been
else.
I do still have New Balances on, but they're my fan. They're like the hip
look
one.
like-
they're the hip guy
those
ones.
don't count.
We'll get in.
I think
there'll be
so.
a time.
So Rob doesn't get it.
Rob, you don't
I'm
get it.
trying to get. I mean, what I definitely appreciate the information, and learning a lot about it because I never knew a lot of
Yes,
this.
but he's a Mustang guy.
It is.
Hey,
He
yes.
met his
Admittedly.
wife at the Stang Bang.
Yeah.
That was
gosh.
it was a
That's a
Houston
real
car
event.
meet.
All right then.
Yeah, that's
20-something years ago. What has it been?
We're done here.
the Stang Bang.
Who came up with the name for the Mustang meet called the Stang Bang?
Wasn't it your forum?
It was not my forum, thankfully. No.
Okay.
So there was the Corvette. See, it was a beautiful.
But that's what I love.
Rendering
Like,
of
this
the
lovely story
Zora
because
guy.
April and I are getting married soon, and April and I met working together on Bear Jacks, and we're getting married very soon. And it's the story of April's like, oh, how did you meet when she meets Rob and Courtney? And I just start giggling because how could we met at the Stang Bang, and it's anywho Corvettes.
It's still wild to me. That's
It's a
real
story
event.
for another time.
Does that event still take place?
No. That went away when the website went
When
away.
it got Me Too'd?
I don't think it ever got me to.
the
No.
whole
no.
event
And
get
I
me-
actually got rear-ended in an Audi TT at the
You
Stang
did?
Bang.
You got rear-ended at
I
Stang
was
Bang.
because
He took his Audi to the Stang Bang and got
I didn't have a Mustang, and I got rear-ended
No wonder
by a
those
Mustang.
guys probably each a new rear end some girls like that.
Oh, they did.
Anyway,
Anyways.
Okay, so anyway,
going off the rails.
point is, we all know this now as, oh, yay, this is the Corvette. Sales are doing great now. Everybody's buying them. It's
How
all
many?
of a sudden different. Well, I wish I knew that exact number, Tyler. I know. I've got a thing here, but
a minute.
more.
Okay, let me start googling while you
Just
tell
wait
your
till
story
next
here.
week. You're doing great.
The thing I was, just give me a second. The point I was making is more than 700 from 55. So any number more than that, it's probably in the thousands.
Yes.
So it just at one point it took off.
Here's what I
Yes.
have according
is
to
what
the
we're-
Google AI.
Okay.
53, 300. 54, 3,600. 55, 700.
Right.
What? 56, 3,467. 1957, 6,339.
Okay, so
Picking up
So
steam.
by
There it goes.
57, they had
Yes.
doubled it.
By
Wow.
57, they had added that little this little Scoopy thing, and another Zora Arcus Duntov thing. They had added fuel injection. Now this is very early in the game, like even worldwide. This was a mechanical rudimentary fuel injection system.
Have you
but
played with it before?
It's almost impossible. I grew up with my dad having a fuelie and him constantly tinkering with
So
it.
now I guess there's some people that can fix it and make it better, but apparently it was like
No.
the piece of junk that everybody took off because they couldn't get it to work.
Is it
right.
mechanical? I assume
It's mechanical
right?
fuel injection, and yes, back then even dealers, but the service areas were like, "Oh my gosh!" People bringing the cars back the next day because it would just It's the idea is there. It just was too complicated to work, but they sure as heck tried.
How much more
There's
horsepower?
the unit. Quite a bit. So the 55 had. I'm trying to think here. Well, I have it in more. It had the 55 was. It was like. It was a 265 V8.
See, I remember
It was
like the
200
Fuelie being like 30 more
something like-
horsepower.
But the
than-
Fuelie was, the Fuelie on the 57 was important because they did manage the famous 1 horsepower per cubic inch factor. So it was a 283, had 283 horsepower.
Yeah.
Which also in 57, massive. That's a now proper car. Also could be available to 4-speed starting in 57. So now it's really becoming the Corvette, especially when it's working.
Yeah. The Vet Bang doesn't have the same ring to it as
no, we don't have any
Stang
cool.
Bang.
We don't have any cool.
You know how many
things like that.
Stangs
We
were
have
at that Stang?
Corvettes
There
at
were
Carlisle.
over 240 Mustangs at Stang Bang.
Wow.
We had to have the police shut the highway down for our escort.
Did they do that on their own, or were they like, oh my God, there's too many Mustangs?
Looking forward to the
I
history
don't
of the
really know
Stang
how
Bang
it
on
happened.
another
Yeah, that'll
day.
be that'll be a future
So
story for you.
this is when, obviously, as you saw, 56, 57 sales doubled, and it just kept kind of snowballing from there.
So there's the beautiful badge with the fuel
Okay, so wait,
injection on the
I'm
side
going
of
to try
that
to
one.
guess what they changed because you say they change something every year, right?
Yeah. So this is a
year,
57.
The 57. They added a hardtop.
Well, in this picture they did.
Damn it.
No, it's like Tyler Cabrera called. The
what if-
56 and 57s look pretty similar, but they have like a little scoopy thing on the passenger fender.
Right.
So by 58 now is when of course, they changed the body style. Now, this is kind of my personal favorite of the C1s.
You like the 4 eyes.
I like it. Yes.
Really?
I don't like that. Yes, because this is a
That's
later.
not a 61,
that's
62 there.
Yeah. But the 58's got dual headlights, kind of it looks wider. And the 58's had something none of the others did. They had this washerboard hood with 2 chrome strips the washerboard hood and the 2 chrome strips coming down the trunk.
Is 58 the year of most gingerbread as far as the chrome stuff, or is it 59?
58 would be.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they kind of go less and less.
And
like that.
here's,
So there
here's
you
my
go.
nerd out. So like 58, yeah, there's but it still has the ribbons on the back, and then 59, the ribbons go away on the trunk.
And then they didn't have the ribbed hood either.
Right. Okay.
So 50, but I like that about 58 because it was like, wow, we're
is
going
your
nuts.
year.
Well, just the looks wise. Yeah. So, and these cars are now going, like the last bite, we had one, I got to drive a 58 Fuelie on stage at Worldwide, and it did, they're pretty respectable numbers as long as it's an NCRS car. It's
much?
like 170.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
That's big.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're coming into their own value wise.
There's no early Mustang that does that unless Carroll Shelby's.
Yeah, he's gotta be
And there's
involved.
the chrome strips on the
Yeah.
trunk. And of course, by this time, also 58 introduced the exhaust coming out of the steel bumper, which looks really cool.
Fancy.
No, I like that.
Yeah. Previously, it came straight out of the body, which looks cool too.
When do we get to the best one? The 63 split window.
Well,
it's the only one I know.
We got to get to 60 and 60.
Well, we
Tyler
haven't
got
talked about
it.
that. Let's go to the
Okay,
split
so 60 they just removed the stuff. Or 59 they removed the stuff, and 59 and 60 were identical except for the direction that the seats were stitched. They're completely interchangeable.
That's a thing?
Whoa. Newsflash on that one.
There's your Porsche guy fact.
Boy,
of the day.
boy, oh
tell me
boy.
about it. There's the one on the old Marty report, the one of one with the stitching.
It really is.
What's
They were-
Marty report? He's going to the Ford.
Yeah, but the Chevy doesn't do that. Is
No,
that
we have
Ford
and we have
only?
NCRS.
Yeah,
What's
for the
NCRS?
judging.
Yes.
Sounds like a database for criminals.
It does sound like that. All of the Corvette guys get fingerprinted.
Which they're
and put
not,
in
because
that.
I appreciate you all coming to car shows, so please keep doing that.
If they get their
Y'all show
NCRS
out.
top flight ribbon robbed,
It adds
then they go
so much to the
Really?
It's like
So
it's
it is like the holy grail
like-
of the Corvette
Well,
world.
so talk about that real quick, which we'll talk about it in the future. It's not just they look at it and go, that looks right. They'll take parts off of the car
Oh, wow.
to make sure parts underneath things that you can't see are correct. It is a big deal. Like, I mean, the car has to be
because your
perfect.
dad took one and
Yes.
restored it to
to
top
NCRS.
flight
Yes.
levels,
And
right?
it is,
Not to
yes,
NCRS.
to the point, yes.
Wow.
Because it was a driver, and then it
And then we restored it. Now it has all the perfect stuff. I mean, everything has to be perfect to the point where the factory overspray has to be on the headers.
But this,
So
this
or
was
the
back
exhaust
when
manifold.
you did it back when it wasn't $1 billion to restore a car, right? It's still
Correct.
expensive.
It was
but
still very expensive, and he said he would never do it again. But yes,
Now
you
it's
couldn't
probably-
do it now.
for a simple Corvette. It's still probably 250
Easily.
grand just in
Jeez.
restoration
But
to have
now-
an NCRS top flight.
And like a
nut and
house,
bolt.
though, when if you have, even if your car is perfect versus if it's been NCRS judged or hasn't, it makes a big deal at auctions and sales. Like you
Yes.
can see it. NCRS car is usually X amount more. Depends
Absolutely.
on the car and which awards it has.
Did not know this.
So someone needs to come up with the NCR,
Yes,
like
like Mustangs.
Yeah, because I
T
mean,
or
the
whatever,
Marty,
yeah.
nobody.
The Marty report, you go, nice.
Yeah,
it has
that's
a
it.
frame. Usually that's the funny thing. It's either has a Marty report or a framed Marty report. And I
Right.
love that about you
the
guys.
the
Stang
extra
Bang
$15.
report.
You're just going to keep going with the Stang Bang, aren't you? Till that story comes way out, and then I get a basement spot for about a week at my house.
Sorry, Courtney.
Yes, sorry, Courtney. We love you.
Speeding through the rest of the 61, they changed the body style a little bit, mostly the rear end. It's the first year we see the four circular
So
taillights.
61, they're starting to get rid of the bling. They're starting to throw off all the gingerbread. So that the chrome surrounds in the headlights, as the image that Jake saw earlier. found. 62 is
62 is up
it's,
there.
it's right up there.
The one
But
that he
yes,
hates.
they're changing, and this was across the board at Chevy. Same thing. A 59 Impala has the most chrome and stuff like that, and then every year after that they got. Well,
so
it's
I'm
just
like-
the way things were going.
I always thought 62 was sort of getting everybody ready for the Corvette to not be like the 50s gingerbread Mr. Sandman.
They
So,
were-
are we talking about
using
adding
the-
muscle
so-
to it, like actually,
like hey, this is
toughening
gonna
it?
we're getting ready for a dramatic change.
Okay.
And also the engine change. So that's what
Yes.
I think the 327 is great. I feel like that should be a bigger plus for the 62 personally.
think.
Apparently the 62 is not desirable according
No,
to
it's
the
not.
I would
Corvette.
say it's
According to
not
Elliot.
But I
desirable.
think-
It's just of the years where they were kind of more muted and stuff like that. But if you like that, that's good.
it almost looks like it's frowning at you from up there.
It's frowning at me.
Yeah.
Oh well, I
think
mean,
you've
it's a nice
disappointed
car.
it.
Anyway, by the time the 62, by the way, the Fuelies 62s made 360 horsepower, which is
How about that?
would be actually
That's pretty good.
quite. I mean, that's a decent amount now. It's
a lot
In
now,
62, that would have been nuts. Anyway, but everybody's favorite, the next year, 1963 is the first. Even though the body style already changed, in my opinion, it's the first second generation Corvette,
Now
and with that,
that's beautiful.
You now have the option to have a coupe and a convertible. Previously, roadster only, and of course, the iconic 63 coupe had the split window.
Did Harley Earl, was he gone by then?
Yes,
Was it somebody else?
this was Bill Mitchell and Shinoda, who is a Mustang guy, were heavy on this design, and obviously it was designed after well, they call it a Stingray, and some different fish inspiration here, as you can see from the rib running from the roof to the rear, which also helped with the split window. Now that was always part of the design, and this was where people kind of come in and was like, I thought it was kind of the coolest part, especially if I were a young chap back then. That's
But people
nothing else.
hated the split window.
Some
they
people
hate it?
did, because if you get in it, if you've driven one, there's a bar in the middle of
Yes.
with the
Can't
rearview
see it.
mirror.
But here's the thing. There's a bar across rear window of a Toyota Prius.
There is.
So that's Elliot's daily
What?
driver.
It's a horizontal bar, but
It's a
where?
it causes major visibility problems driving
Prius?
a,
Yeah,
a
'cause-
second-gen Toyota Prius in the
How
glass
have I
window.
never seen this?
And yet Toyota has continued this
Yeah, they're
for
doing-
decades. So Elliot prefers less rear visibility.
I've had cars with spoilers that you just can't see out of the back of. It doesn't bother me. What's behind you doesn't matter.
But
Like Ferrari
Elliot,
said.
Elliot is the only person to have tracked a Prius, I think, probably
Yes.
chasing a Bugatti Veyron.
That's
which was-
100% the only time that's happened.
Yes.
So
Guaranteed.
Jake, images?
Jake's
He tuned out again. He's
Yeah, he's-
I know. His fingers are on fire right now. If you have this,
A
still-
horizontal
I
bar
think
on
for
the rear
future
of a Prius.
reference, there probably should be images. So when Robbie, you do yours next week, there'll be images ready to go versus Jake having
Yes,
to.
I'll send him lots of
so
wonderful
we
Italian.
we talked
either
about
that
this.
or bring Adderall for Jake to snort,
That's true.
and then he'll be.
He's
gone.
off camera. He can do that.
yeah, I was saying he can do whatever he
He could
wants.
be having a whole
He could
mirror.
have a whole ender,
He could have a
yeah.
whole mirror and straw situation.
I wasn't
over
talking
there.
about the
where's the
glass.
ball?
I was
I
talking
still
about
didn't
the
see
image
it in
of
the-
the
wow.
of the drifting.
Yeah, because
because
it really is. It's bisected
So where
from the
is
back,
it? Because
the
it's,
hatch
I mean,
glass.
in this wonderfully clear picture, I
well,
can't.
you like the pixelated pictures.
Well, yeah, but I mean, for the way the car looks, but I can't see.
It's our first episode, folks.
Yes.
We're
Bear
getting
with
there.
us, guys.
And I'm trying-
hang in there.
It'll
I'm
get
trying.
marginally
There
better.
we go. There's the image.
Okay,
So
that's a great image.
I watched a lot of other podcasts, and what I don't want to be, and hopefully I'm not being, is a little too snarky with you all. Well, some other hosts,
I think so.
Doug DeMuro might be a little, dismissive and mean to his co-hosts.
Oh.
And I don't want to be that way.
No.
No,
We'll give it right back to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I don't
was
want to
kinda-
come off as
I kind of hope you do.
I want to be entertained by my friends, and hopefully you all are being entertained
Oh, look-
by
look at
these
this
stories.
douchebag.
Look at this.
Whoa.
Wow.
Look, is that the old car barn?
What
That
happened?
is the old car barn. Well, Jake,
Wow.
where are we going?
I don't know. I like where you're. Keep going, Jake.
I like it. It was
Just
perfect.
keep going.
Where are we going?
Wow. Look at
at this.
this.
You don't even- you don't even
now.
fill
Like
out
the
that shirt very
1963
well.
Corvette, unlike
Yeah, that
me,
shirt's a little
was
saggy.
perfectly symmetrical. Because you look at my face, and I just learned this actually from thumbnails when I was trying to figure out thumbnails that would work on my 1923 Packard video, and
did any
trying
of
all
those
kinds
work?
of different things. And when you flip like mirror image to try and get the right angle, like you looking at yourself and mirror image your own face, you look like a psycho. Like just mirror imaging yourself because your face isn't symmetrical. Like my head, the way my hair goes, and all that. Back to Corvettes.
Corvettes.
I was hoping to find the on my Instagram of the Prius
He did-
chasing
he-
the
he
Veyron,
did.
He had it
which
up
was unbelievable.
He had
quick.
it up for a second before this.
So-
Go back to- I can only
so-
imagine Jake has 900 windows up there.
There it
There it is. But you wouldn't Would you take a 63 of all? I guess in the end we should talk about of all years of Corvettes, but
Not out of any years, but I do. It really is up there with beautiful. I know it's controversial. I think the 53 and 54 are more beautiful and more stylish, but this is a cooler and more advanced car. It's a better car in every single way. There's a lot of advancements, a lot of changes for the C2, other than them calling it the C2. Completely different body. Now you've got pop-up headlights, which was now going to be a Corvette staple from there until like 2004. But back to that split window thing. Like I said, some people loved it, some people hate it. Those who wanted to see behind them obviously hated it. Now, the designer of the car, Bill Mitchell, was like, that's the thing, that's going to stay. And Zora Arkus-Duntov, who was a fan of seeing behind him, was like, we have to lose it for the next year. And there was a back and forth, apparently a pretty heated battle. In the end, Zora got his way, and for 64, they removed it. Now, I think going forward, like it's like 64, 5, and 6, they look kind of similar because of that, which is, I guess, another Harley Earl thing, change the design every year. The interesting thing is back at the time, now we all know the 63 for being the most valuable and desirable, whatever version of the C2 because of the split window. Now, remember we were talking about how every year something changes and people would look down on you. So if you had a 63 back then and it became 1965 or whatever else, people were actually cutting the bar out of their 63s and fitting 64 and up glass to convince people they had a newer Corvette.
Really popular thing to do at the time, which now in retrospect,
it hurts to hear that somebody did that.
A fuel-injected 63 split window, which is probably worth more than a 53 Corvette, or could be.
They're very close. 53s are still just kind of that special first year thing, but they are in the 200. An NCRS 63 Fuelie with the two prong knockoffs. Yeah, they're easily a 250,000 plus car. This is, it's just like I said, there's the difference of the two.
To saw it off,
there you go.
Where they were like, hey, we can fix this for you.
But it actually did that.
It worked. I mean, like I said, we can only imagine now, but it's like, it kind of made sense for pretty cheap. You got to look like you had a brand new Corvette.
Well, and then, people didn't want to look like they had the old one that got the rejects. So, yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how many were put back.
I know, that is interesting because the other thing, 63 also was the only year to have these little fake grill inserts in the hood.
Is that like the Mako Shark thing?
That's the Mako.
Yes.
Okay.
That's cool.
That's
so obviously
stunning.
heavily influenced.
Beautiful.
They had a few concept cars going back to this. They had another one that they designed in 59. So another thing that needs to be brought up is Corvettes, because this, as things kept getting better, is Corvettes and racing. So back in this late C1, starting in like 59, you could kind of option your Corvette as if you were going to take it to the car. See, there's one right there. That's an actual factory race car, but you could also option your car at the dealership with like a radio delete, a bigger gas tank, and big brakes. So those cars for C1s bring pretty big money. It's a big tank, big brake car, is something they would refer to it as. And this is a thing. People are taking their cars actually racing.
Elliot, do you like a big tank?
Of course, you gotta have a big tank. You've seen it. You've seen it.
Oh yeah, we know.
We know.
Yeah, we know.
There's the Grand Sports up top, which is another phenomenally valuable car. That's like an entirely, that I could go on about this. Zora Arkus-Duntov also made these cars. And this was back when, remember, all the manufacturers had signed the gentleman's agreement, no more factory racing after the horrible accident in, I believe, 56.
The Millimia.
Yeah. So like 80 people died or something. It was like crazy. So it was
bad.
Yeah. So everybody, especially in America, it was, we are not participating in racing anymore. Of course, Corvettes still kind of was, but they always found a way around it as, well, it's not technically us, it's these guys. But this was a factory developed car that, again, is going racing. So what you could start to see, these were purpose-built race cars. There's a Z06, which is another thing that we all know and love now as a household term, but it debuted in the 63 Corvette as well. And that was basically the option code for big tank, big brakes.
And those are
more
crazy valuable than
a
63 split window.
Now, they only made
anything else.
They only made like 49 of it. Or maybe
how many are left?
It was
There can't be many left if they were raced.
Probably. Probably 500,000 plus for one of those.
Oh, I would think so.
Easily.
For sure.
Yeah, but the other thing, they have independent rear suspension now. Very rare. Even across the board, European or not, it was for having independent rear suspension. So now the cars are handling better.
Right.
They have front disc brakes. Another, at this price point and everything like that, you're starting to see the Corvette become what we know it for now as being a, dollar for dollar European ass kicker. because it has all of the performance, and you could get it for, a quarter of the price of the, competitive Ferrari.
Yeah, but the Europeans were doing pretty well themselves.
They
Sort
were
of the
doing
E-Type Jag with the
Yes.
inboard disc brakes.
Exactly.
And,
This was a great time for innovation.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because the E-Type was out by now. And it's just it's fascinating what they do. So the engines keep getting bigger, keep getting better. By 65, you could get all 4-wheel disc brakes as an option, and 65 is another car you had, right? You
I had
a
a 66.
Never mind, you had a 66, but the 65 is very rare. But you could get a big block.
Yeah.
And then by 66, you had the big block.
65 is a weird year because it was 396. They put a big bump in the hood, but then they still offered fuel injection. So
Right, and I was going to mention that's what killed the fuel injection, because they offered that engine, and fuel injection was more, and so you
More
had to pay
expensive option,
You had to pay
yes.
$50 more, which in 65 is not chicken scratch. I don't even know what that adjusts for, but it's a lot.
Unreliable
And-
fuel injection that everybody hated, or for a little bit less, you got a big block and a big old bump out in the hood. That obviously,
And
the one
the
you
fuel
want.
injection made less horsepower. It was literally you had to pay more money for less horsepower.
Yep.
Yeah, there's the bump.
so there's sort of that 65 bump, which continued in the 66.
There's the Nassau Blue too, which
Yeah,
Oh,
I have the
Nassau
Nassau
Blue.
Blue,
Beautiful.
427.
Yep. And then by 67, you could get small block 67s, but the one you want is the big block 427 car, because they got, the different side rakes, whatever, I'm going to call them fins. They're not gills.
Gills,
Yeah.
yes.
And the Stinger hood, which is not functional, but does look cool. And they always had like an offset color. When I was a kid, my dad had a red with black Stinger hood car. And of course, he sold them when they weren't worth anything. And now they're worth
My dad,
bunch of
I
money.
think our second Barrett Jackson, he got his bidder's pass. And he would go with his friends, and I would drive them. So I'm old enough to drive, 17 or something like that. And those were the Stoli Soda years where they were drinking vodka, getting
Oh boy,
just smashed.
bad decisions.
So numbers matching, NCR's top light, 427, maroon convertible, maroon with a black stripe. And the room was kind of stalling out towards the end of the day. And for whatever reason, Dad decided to bid. It was like at 85, something like that. And he went $100,000. And he jumped the bid so quick that he scared everybody. Because it would have been, even back then in 2004 or 5,
they still were 100 and something.
$150,000 car, but he had scared everybody and then stalled the bidding. And so he almost got the car, going once, going twice. And he's going up on the stage, walking around the car and looking at like, oh my God, I'm buying a maroon Corvette. The phone rings at home. My mom answers. Your husband's on national TV. He just bid $100,000 on a Corvette. What the?
Yeah, that's the way to.
And somewhere there is footage of this, and I've tried to find it, because apparently, like, there's me in the audience. There's like Mom said that they saw everything, and I thought it'd be fun to find that 20 years later,
Right.
and they can't find it in the old footage.
Yeah, it was
but,
on Speed Channel back
right,
then.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was probably
I
watching.
love Speed
Yeah.
Channel.
But yeah.
That was
mercifully,
my jam.
someone outbid him, and then the thing sold. But yeah, he got to crap himself on national television. So, but they did all kinds. Like there's one time
He still
where
would have gotten a good deal. If
I
he,
mean, yeah,
if
if
he
it
had
was
gotten that, if he
worth
had, if
$150,
he
he
had
actually
gotten that,
should've
it still
got
would have been a deal.
the year after that, I think, is when they tried to drive across a parking lot to the casino that was in the same parking lot, and the rental car was a Trailblazer, came back with 2 flat tires.
Oh geez.
They really drove across the
literally
parking lot.
across-
So and
Yeah.
I was living in Colorado at the time, so I had to stay because my flight was later and deal with this, even though I wasn't on the rental, and I had to deal with the whole accident stuff and all that. And I think that the following year was actually an Escalade rental, and one of his friends was catcalling some girls out in the parking lot, and so I started rolling up the window.
That is
He was
what you do
behind-
in Scottsdale,
He was
by the way.
behind me, and I hear
Didn't
this.
even know
I
that.
hear this noise. It's like, what is that noise? And it is his hand in the window motor. And he is so drunk that I realize that I've rolled his hand up in the window before he does. And then finally, I finally starts yelling. But I there's a
Wait, now is
second
he
one.
gonna watch this?
Probably.
Oh, good. That's great.
He
Yeah.
didn't mention any names. It's
So
fine.
that's Barrett Jackson.
Barrett Jackson's- but
my
that's-
427 Corvette story.
That's great. And by the way, that color was called Marlboro Red back then. I
think that's
Really?
which is hilarious that you could name it after. But that's the times.
Right.
You were smoking a cigarette while you're in
Yeah.
that car for
Yeah, 'cause
sure.
That's Roman red.
Yeah.
And
They had a lot
yeah,
of Marlboro
Marlboros,
Red.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
as
very
a
nice.
Corvette rookie, I just have a quick question. And a Harley Earl, he's on a trophy, isn't he? Or is he not?
I don't like. You mean like an award that they give out at like a show?
On a
Or
big
what?
trophy? Like
I don't
is
think
he
so.
not?
I mean, he probably is. There's probably somewhere
I thought
he's
he was
Googling.
I feel like there's the Harley Era trophy.
I'm gonna vamp while you guys are Googling. I can
looking-
only imagine that he is on some sort of trophy of design somewhere. He was.
That's what I thought.
He's
Daytona
on
500.
See,
Yes.
because I'm not.
There's
I
your
wasn't-
NASCAR. Your NASCAR guy.
Why is
I
he
kept
on
hearing the Harley. That's what I'd like to know. That was my question. Like, I don't know this, but why would he be on the?
I mean,
there it is.
Interesting.
Okay, interesting.
not-
Oh, because that's one of his designs. It was the Firebird, wherever they.
But why would that be tied into Daytona? Like, that's interesting. Like, what?
The only thing I can think of is he used to take in '56. He took a Corvette, not him, but he under his like suggestion, they took Corvettes to Daytona Beach to do like the Flying Mile, and like the '62 I think was one of the first to do like 150 in the Flying Mile, and they did something else with the '56 Bel Air. So that's the only thing. That's the only Daytona tie-in I can think of. Commenters, if you know the history of
Please.
why?
I'd like to know.
Right.
And it was just, it jarred every time he kept saying Harley Earl. I kept in my mind, I'm like,
see,
is Jake having a back
we don't
problem?
have a mic for
I
him,
know.
so he can't like.
He's
he
gonna
can
have to
only-
yell in.
He was the second commissioner of NASCAR.
There we go.
There you go.
Second
That-
commissioner of
Wow.
NASCAR.
I was too busy talking about his design.
Right. So
Hey.
we are in now 1967.
Yes.
So we've made it to the end of the C2.
Right. Which, believe it or not, what comes after C2? The C3. And still
C3PO.
the Stingray. Now these, I love. Like, again, I grew up with my dad having a 68, a couple of 68s actually. First year for them.
They're ugly.
Well, this one, he picked the one with the... Okay.
What?
Rob, Rob,
I'm trying,
Rob,
right?
it's the late 60s,
Okay,
A,
wait.
and B, I never liked these wheel covers, even if they are correct on the base car.
So you don't like the
I was
big
getting-
It's
the
got
big
the
hips.
Did you not see the 63 split
Look at
window
that.
and
You don't
then
think
that
that's a
comes out?
good, that's a strong, good looking
Okay, go
car.
back. That one, okay, in black it looks good with the chrome accents
Well,
on
it
the
depends
side
on
pipes.
the angle.
Now go
Yes.
back to the other.
There's some really beautiful, I mean, there's...
Okay, get away from that one. Oof. I don't know. I mean, I
Anyway,
like some of them. I've seen
like I
that
said,
some. We had a lot of them at our car shows, and they look great.
The rally wheels,
But
here,
that
as pictured
one-
here, make a big difference on the car. I think they should all have them, even if it's not the way they come. This is also a 69. These are like, you could get factory side exhaust, which is
That's
something you
cool.
could get earlier, but they were always a
The
dealer add-on.
exhaust didn't look like that.
No.
The header's
No,
still
no, no.
going.
This is like nuts.
One
side
pipe that
exhaust.
just stuck out.
That is
This
that,
would be
that
loud.
instant burn you.
Yes.
If
Oh,
you
yeah.
touch
And I
that,
did. My
yeah.
dad's had these on them, like that exact thing, and that was my first burn as a child. I think I
wow.
was like 5, and my dad had already told me to be that, but I was too excited getting out at a Dairy Queen.
Oh.
And you go and you swung, and I went to go push myself back up, and it
Oh.
was Sizzle City.
Yeah.
And
I did that to a brake caliper. I was like, "Ooh, it's shiny."
Oh,
I remember, that's a little kid memory. Like you do
Yeah.
that once, and yeah.
yep. Then
Or
you're
a
like,
brake
man, these
ro-
stay
a brake
hot for a
rotor, I'm
long
sorry, a
time.
brake
right,
rotor.
that's
These
what I
stay
thought you
hot for a
meant.
long
Yeah.
time.
yeah. I can't imagine because that is sizzling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all got first car burn stories.
Like that caravan of yours I took down Colorado.
Oh,
Melted
yes.
your
Rob,
brakes.
I said he was a.
Oh,
yeah.
did you ride the brakes down a hill?
I
rode
didn't
the
mean. I
brakes.
didn't even try to.
You
I
didn't-
barely.
on
Are
an
you-
early
you-
off-road
you've
adventure?
never
in
driven
my-
in the mountains?
in my van, my
was
caravan,
a-
all-wheel drive.
It was a caravan.
That was early on in the channel as well.
Yes,
That was very early
was.
on in the channel. Yeah.
Didn't you give that away to a subscriber or something?
No, I sold it.
Or
to
you
somebody.
sold it, but they came in. I don't know. I remember
I
the
sold it years ago. There's is a Woody
Voyager,
Plymouth
right?
Voyager, I
Yeah.
think, or Chrysler Town and Country all-wheel drive, which was pretty rare.
Yeah.
And yeah, I took that along with some other off-roaders, and 2 of the off-roaders of the 4 broke, or 3 out of the 4.
Yeah.
It was pretty
because
rough.
Jay overheated the Jeep.
Jay overheated the Jeep, killed the head gas on $300 Jeep, and the ML55 was good.
Yeah, it was great.
And the
Cayenne
Turbo overheated kind of, but made it trying to tow one of the broken hoopties home. So
Yeah. So early Hoovie's garage video if you want.
Yes.
right, and Rob is in it.
Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, 68 radical design change. I mean, I say so. You know, the C1, C2 is like, yeah, it's a change. This is like, whoa, totally different car. And apparently, as the 2 out of 3 of us think it's a good looking car, apparently it was a polarizing design. I've always personally thought it.
That's
looked-
better.
I've always thought
Color
it looked
matters.
great. Having grown up being in them and around them, I mean, I remember this was before seatbelt laws and stuff,
Well,
guys.
Rob,
I would ride
I
in the
mean,
back
but
of one of
why?
these.
If we're talking
I
if
thought
we're
you-
talking values,
Uh-huh.
the C3 is nowhere near
No.
the first couple of generations of Corvette. So Rob is sort of with
Yes.
with the trends of people
True.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But no.
No, I mean, you say that the C3 is not as pretty. It doesn't bring as much money.
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
see what
you're
you're saying.
not-
Okay,
you're-
valuable.
you are of the majority in that
Okay.
opinion.
All right. Yeah, I guess I can see that.
So the C3, even though Jake's only shown pictures of convertibles, was the first year to offer.
Pixelated convertibles. yes.
Clearly. Maybe
Guys,
that's why.
This is some real.
This could be
is
why.
some good first podcast gold. We're
yeah,
gonna
exactly.
go
Oh,
on.
boy. We're going to look back on this one someday and be like, wow.
I know they're like, wow, these guys don't have a logo. Yeah.
Well, there's a tools. There's a little tab that says tools, and you can go to image size and then.
You know, largest 600 vertical pixels.
Well, I mean,
I
if you're going to
told-
do it, go big.
But to
And make it real pixelated.
defend Jake a little bit, I told Elliot to bring images and sort of make it a PowerPoint, and he did not do that. And he
Yeah, but look how
he
much
basically he had 2 weeks to prepare, and he's crammed for this.
I think he's done.
like,
Look at all this.
an
He's
hour
got
before.
a lot here.
But he has all,
just
he
keep
has
do-
all,
we keep
he has all the
derailing him.
Corvette knowledge. So
I know,
it was
I'm
all
not even
built
looking
in.
at my page really. It's
Right.
just like it.
It's all there.
It
So
is all here. So anyway, I wanted to show the 68. One of its big things, other than major styling changes with the big hips and the exaggerated everything. It's very long hood at this point. It's kind of almost SLR like in how far back you sit in a 68 and up Corvette. I mean, it's crazy. Not quite, but you know what I mean. The same style of long hood, short rear, 2 seats. But the coupe had removable roof panels in 68, so T-tops. Again, another hard top.
another convertible.
I promise, guys, images of 68 coupes do exist.
So put
Maybe take convertible out of your
69
search.
Corvette T-top or something
There we
like
go.
that.
Oh,
There it
there's
is.
one. Okay.
Yay.
So this is a 69 because
Nah,
it doesn't
maybe
say
like this
Stingray
one.
on it. But
Yeah.
that was, believe it or not, T-tops were a thing. We all grew up and somebody knew a Camaro with them. But back in 68, this was like, oh, what a novel idea. And something they continued on forever in one form or another. I mean, it really was a novel idea. The back glass would remove, the 2 tops would come out, and you had essentially an open top experience.
I wonder why. And then, of course, this happened in the C2 as well. Why no trunk? So that 62 has a trunk?
Yes. And then
This
never
60
again. Not for a while.
Then they didn't do a trunk.
They didn't do a trunk until the C5 again.
Right.
Really.
What, the C4 didn't have a
The
trunk?
C4 didn't
It's
have a
a
trunk. It has
hatchback
hatchback.
thing, yeah.
But so it's hard to see from these images. It really is. There's a lot of space back there. It's open. It's not a,
Right,
a
you
wall.
could tuck somebody in
you
there.
throw
Okay.
stuff
Yeah.
back there.
Was there a hole? Like you
Yeah,
just
it's a hole
no,
by the
you
seats.
just-
it's completely open. You
Okay.
could take stuff and the seats would flop forward so you could load luggage. I don't know if it was something that it was impossible to make those body lines with a trunk, with the swoopingness, and it was either impractical, to actually, and like the C5 proves, when you pop a C5 convertible trunk, you still have to work your fingers around it to get it to like
Oh, right.
pop
'Cause
up.
it's actually not. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's literally on the.
Yeah, it's a flat piece of
Yeah.
bodywork that when you pop it up, so
Right.
I can imagine that's why. But it is amazing. That's a good point. How long they stuck with not doing it, especially in the coupes, because the back glass didn't even open until the last year of the C3. So even in the coupes, you were still folding the seat down and throwing something back there.
Wow.
But anyway, the C3 also saw kind of the heyday of the muscle car, as we all know.
The peak of horsepower.
Right. So although the Corvette is not a muscle car, it was still right up there and past them.
Ooh, so there's the rear. So
that.
there's plenty of kids that were hauled illegally in the
Yes,
back.
I guarantee
I being
Wait,
one
is
of
that-
them.
is
That's
that
like
a
a
Corvette?
there's somebody's modified it.
Oh,
It's got like
okay.
louvers and
Yeah.
speakers. But I definitely rode in the back of my fair share of C3s, and even in the convertible, I would just be like laying
There
down
we
back
go.
there.
So happy
Taking
to
the
be taking
T-top.
Look at that
off.
guy. He's got his
He's thrilled.
turtleneck that
Turtleneck
matches,
and the
he's
girl.
got his woman.
Yeah.
And
she's impressed that she's like, it's a coupe and a convertible.
it's probably broken down.
Well,
Looks like it's broken down.
I don't know.
He's just. I don't know.
Who knows?
But that's a very
She looks more
Madman-esque
incredulous.
photo
Yeah, that is
where
a
it's like a
really
20-year-old
great-
model with a much, much older man.
Dude in a trench coat.
Like that is
I
that
like
is
the
a
yellow
niece.
matching shirt though. That is pretty great. I mean,
Yeah.
But anyway, it really was a cool feature, and they continued it. Now, back to the horsepower stuff. This is when we started to see, some pretty big numbers, and of course, this was across the block or the board in every manufacturer. So GM was now making other cars with horsepower. You by this point definitely had the GTO. You had your Impalas with the big motors. The tri-power stuff. This is the Corvette still needs to be top dog. So they offered different packages. Obviously, you could get your big block, but now later on, it turned into a 454 instead of a 427.
Right. Which they were very resistant. And with Camaros, I know, as far as the back door with Yanko, and then finally them doing it for real. The Corvettes, was it 70 or was it 71 with the 454? I don't
71. I think you could get it in 70.
Yeah.
It was the first year. But 71 and 2, you could definitely get it as well. That's a 73 or later.
a factory
that's a
hood?
big old hood.
Yeah, but
That's a factory
that's a
hood?
later car
Wow.
because of the non-steel bumpers. But before they got into that, they had the LT1, which is a name that they started back then. They brought forward, but that was kind of one of the higher in up packages.
Who was the designer of the C3?
This was still, I think, I don't have this in my notes. It's still Bill Mitchell, I think, because it's still the Stingray
Was
design.
it?
Yes, because he was still like
Okay.
the main dude.
Okay.
And Zora's still alive. And
Zora's still kicking.
And this is a
with this
454 they made power.
not this particular one
No.
because this is a later car, but the
Yeah.
454s did make power. They also have a few things that as time. Well, let me mention they had the LT1. You know, you got your basically 390 horsepower engines. You had even things up to the L88, which they did not make very many of. But this is a naturally aspirated engine in a Corvette. They made 560 horsepower.
and that's about the only C3 that can bring like holy
that's-
smokes.
That's
like,
that's half
like,
a million
big
dollars.
boys.
Yeah, they're $500,000 easy.
Yeah.
They didn't, like I said, they didn't make a lot of them. There's a lot of cool stuff with them. I got to drive one of those on stage, which was like one of
Oh,
my
really?
one of
What
my
did that
Corvette.
sound like?
Oh boy, I mean, it just strong.
Yeah,
it's so
it's
just
just
thunderous.
angry.
And one of the things, it's so high compression and so everything on just the L88s. One of the official starting instructions is to open the hood before starting because it could. Have a backfire, blow the hood off.
Oh my God.
It was such a
Jeez.
potent engine that it was like, I mean, nobody does that, but it was one of those things where
That's
they're
it.
like, I think that's one of the coolest pre-start instructions ever. It's like, hey, just so you don't blow the hood off of this thing, pop it real quick, in case this thing has a little bit of a cough.
Now I'm interested. Like this is interesting.
Nobody's doing that at the Stang bag.
They ain't doing that at the still. Well, I mean, some stuff.
But
getting
this is
blown
a
off, but
real
not,
serious-
not
real-
hoods.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
It's a real serious car. Things
Do it
like
to myself. Damn it. Damn it. Love you, honey.
hoods are getting blown off at the stand bag.
Kids are getting.
Yeah. This is where you see names like the LT1, the ZR1 performance packages, and like I said, Corvette was at the top of the world. The L88 could do the quarter mile in like 10.8 seconds in the
What?
60s. I mean, it was
10.8?
later. It was literally a racing car,
Right.
I mean, and like I said, that's fast now. So I can't even imagine how dangerous and how many people wrap themselves around trees with these kind of cars. Because I mean, it was just big power, and the tires were still not very wide.
Weren't they underrated too? Like,
Yes.
weren't they? Everyone
Oh, yeah,
was
they were.
underrating back then too.
And here's the other great timing for our first
Yeah.
ever podcast
Big
recording
storms.
is in
Heavier rain.
a rain and thunderstorm. So maybe we'll give a second for room tone, and then maybe Jay can fix this in the edit.
Okay.
Is it disappearing? I'm not sure. Probably just gonna have to deal with a little bit of raindrop noise.
Are these
but,
both L88s? Is that what for sure? Yeah, because you could get a 67 L88, which is worth even more because they made even less of them. But yeah, the L88s are just the holy grail of as much horsepower and as crazy as things got for a long time, and values reflected. I mean, these are $500,000-$600,000 cars.
Crazy.
Right.
I think the last one we had worldwide was 520,
what year?
68, 69.
69.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the time, the Boss 429 and you have the
Everybody was
426
making
Hemi.
stuff, but it was
And
nothing. Was this?
This was the big one.
So like I said, I think Chevy won as far as the horsepower wars go, hands down. They won, and this wasn't their muscle car. This still had independent rear. This was still meant to go road racing. It wasn't just a drag strip wonder. Although with the 10 second
yeah.
quarter mile, it still was the king of that
Beat
as well.
anything.
Yeah, and like I said, it also goes. It kind of had that AMG-ish thing to it, where it's like there wasn't a whole lot that said that it was a lot different than a normal Corvette. Like it's got a different hood.
And was this significantly lighter than a Camaro? Still?
I don't know exactly, but yes, with the fiberglass, everything
Have
was
to be.
fiberglass. It's still a body on frame thing, but now that's the good part about the C3.
This is the top of the mountain.
Yeah, this is the great part about the C3.
Here's about
And
to
then
go off a cliff here.
every
Yeah.
year.
I can start looking for Facebook
Starting
cars.
at about 73. The emissions folks were kind of coming in. The oil embargo was stepping in. And unfortunately, the safety people were stepping in because they had to do away with the steel front bumpers. So they had low impact or 5 mile per hour impact, what they call rubber bumpers. So you lost one of the styling cues, but it still had a steel rear bumper until the next year where they had to put a rubber rear bumper. And they call these cars rubber bumper vets. They call them that derogatorily.
Right.
Because they would also, the paint technology on plastics and stuff at the time was also
They,
horrible.
they all fall apart. On the
They-
original
they
survivors, they disintegrate, they fall apart. And I know like on 75s, they decided to split the rear bumper to so the one half of the bumper
yeah,
was
I remember
replaceable.
seeing that on the
less
corners.
plastic.
Yeah.
And that's one weird year where they did a seam in the rear bumper, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
what? So they
They're
did
like-
it for 1 year and then did it. But yeah,
They were trying everything, but
No, they weren't trying. They were just like, okay, we're screwed. Everybody was just like,
it should be said, if you know anything about cars, whatever your favorite brand of car is, also sucked during this time period.
Yeah.
Yes,
It doesn't
they-
matter.
they
what
were
you
all
had.
bad.
It
Yeah,
was
the
a
Mustang-
horrible time.
Oh,
the
my
Stang
gosh.
Bang
Yeah,
became
no.
the Stang
I've
Mustang
not
Bang
bought one of
2.
those.
Yeah,
That wouldn't
I
even
was-
have made it to Stang Bang.
Exactly. It's like I
Those
said,
things were
it didn't matter if
hideous.
Ferraris were low horsepower. Everything was being choked at this time.
Yeah.
To the point where by 1975, when they first had to do the catalytic converter stuff, the Corvette was making 165 horsepower.
God.
We went from being able to get 560 to, like I said, less than 5 years, making less than 200 horsepower. Now, it does matter that they did switch the horsepower ratings from whatever to SAE. So that also hurt numbers. So all the base numbers were already low, but then you mentioned choking everything. And like I said, auto manufacturer didn't know what to do to pass these new things. It was like you just had to choke these big motors. You look at the Cadillacs and everything else, they had these huge, big motors
God,
that made
those-
no horsepower. It was just a dark, dark time.
Right.
And like I said, the cars got more and more. This is a later car.
When the convertible went away.
The convertible
too.
went away in 75 as
did
well
it?
because of safety rules and
Yeah.
everybody. That's the
Same
same thing
with
where
all of them, no
All of them,
convertibles.
yeah.
76 the last year, the Eldorado convertible,
Yep.
and like
Oh,
everybody
yeah, I never
had
even
to,
thought about that. You didn't see those.
wasn't
Those
safe.
were
that's why
gone.
Porsches, that's why the Targa kind of came about because it was like, oh, you can kind of have a convertible again.
So
Anyway,
the dark ages have begun.
Yes.
And what year were you born, Rob?
76.
76.
Right in the
you
middle
were
of it.
born
You
in
did
the
this.
It was
you
totally
came about
me.
in the
Yeah.
malaziest
Ah, it
of
was horrible.
and Elliot was born in 1957 or
Yes.
47 or 57.
whichever you want to see. I just put in it's on my senior dating profile.
The Golden Bachelor came to town, and it was a high school reunion for Elliot.
I know that was it was the best. I would never delete that comment on that picture because it was just like,
Pretty
oh
great.
dang, that is what it looks like.
Because so the Bachelor, the Golden Bachelorette, the guy who won
Yes.
is from Wichita that you know, and
Yes.
then you took a photo with them.
And we're standing together.
And they're in their 70s, and you look the same. Elliot's younger than me, by the way, but he's got that kind of a silver fox thing going
Yeah.
on that
I do.
that the ladies
They like it.
love and then leave. I mean, but
They
anyway.
like it for small amounts,
Yeah, exactly.
but they like it. I mean,
yeah.
Love and then leave is. I hope it's not my hair. No, it's the other bad
I don't know.
parts.
Actually, some of them don't leave.
Yeah,
So it does,
some of them don't leave.
Yeah, some of them just kind of.
So you were born
one
in
might be outside this building now.
So by now, 76, Rob
Yes.
Santori is
I was
born.
born.
Rob exists now.
Yes,
He,
I exist.
he has showed up
In
in New York.
horrible time. No, Arcadia, California.
Arcadia.
Wow.
Okay. California, then New York?
California, then Connecticut.
Oh, okay. Interesting. But the
Well,
families.
where would you
Families
see,
all New York.
So
Okay.
did you grow up like when you're like start remembering stuff?
That would have been Connecticut all the
Okay.
way through till I was like 17, and then moved here,
Oh wow. Okay.
and then all the way out from here.
How about that?
and who knows if they're hearing any of this right now?
Probably
our
not.
first,
It
our
sounds
first podcast.
so much louder. Yeah. Jake's looking at us like, it's okay, guys. It's Kansas. What were we gonna
Yeah,
do?
I mean-
Dude, go silent for a second. Jake? Why don't you put on some headphones and see how this sounds here? Why don't we just pause
our
to
first
see?
one. I mean,
it's our first one.
It's our
yeah.
first one.
Oh,
Everybody,
wait, you
you
don't
just
cross
play
your legs.
along.
Yeah.
Everyone
And
get a little stretch
Elliot
break.
needs to pee
Elliot,
anyway.
yeah,
Use
Elliot's
a little
gotta go to
water,
the
all that
bathroom.
stuff.
Yeah, this whole time it's been like this.
I need to call my wife and apologize.
Our very first podcast is a total off the rails.
Honey, we talked about the
disaster.
Stang Bang. I know we want to talk about the Stang Bang,
No,
but we
I'm going to
did.
use this as a piss jug live.
You should.
on
Really?
the stream.
Wait, did I get a water over there? I don't know if I ever got a water. Is there? No, I guess not.
You're gonna sell your jars on Patreon.
Elliot, yeah, instead of bath water.
Okay, everybody silent for a moment.
It's actually really pleasant.
But is it very audible?
Oh, it's audible, but it sounds nice.
So everybody talk. 1, 2,
Okay.
3. Go ahead, talk over each other a
All
little
right,
bit.
we're going to
We can
start
talk over
cross
each
talking
other.
here, Rob.
Yes, we
We're
are.
gonna
We're gonna
just totally
continue to crosstalk.
overlap.
How is it? Are
Completely.
we still
Are we?
Yeah.
able to hear us?
Oh yeah, you can hear you guys great.
Okay, then
Oh,
we're
good.
good. All right.
Directional
All right, we have some nice mood relaxation.
Anyway, yeah, okay, yeah. For the put the people to sleep, like Jake, where I just
He
woke
said
him up to
it's
check the
soothing.
audio.
For those
So
who are
here,
listening to this to sleep.
10 seconds of just
ASMR.
ASMR.
That's sounds of Kansas nature.
lovely. So we were in 1976. Rob's
Yes.
born in
Yes.
California, and then he's gone to Massachusetts, and then
Connecticut.
Kansas
Connecticut,
or
same
Connecticut.
basic
I'm
thing.
sorry. Yeah,
They're all the
okay.
same.
Yeah, sorry
Yes.
everybody in those two states.
And look at this woman have the time of her life in
Wow.
her
Oh,
maroon.
man. You know,
Yep.
I will say she raises a good point. The Corvette's up until this point, perfect height for arm out the window. We also lose that after the C3.
I don't think we
Okay.
ever get cars that do that right again.
No, we can't.
Every single time
Safety,
I'm either up
everything
here
like
or
Well-
down here. I'm never.
that. It's a good.
I feel like with the Corvette, so the C3, what I've driven, it seems like a lot of heat gets in the cabin, and I don't like around your feet.
They are
and
hot
stuff.
because the floors were still fiberglass.
But it wasn't as bad on my C2. I'm not sure why.
I don't know why. It depends on which ones you've driven, but they were known for that, and especially when they put the catalytic converter in and started routing.
That's
the
probably
things
what it
in,
was.
Is so all of a sudden now you have something storing heat right underneath you, and they did change, I believe, in '78 to have an aluminum pan there to help mitigate cabin heat.
That makes sense.
And then also you'll find, like Vipers, the cars with the factory side pipes get a little hotter,
Right.
too.
So
But
I feel like at the
that
end of the
adds up.
C3, they did some gimmicks to get them sold, like the
Yeah.
pace car stuff.
Pace
Everybody
cars.
bought
That's
that.
a good car.
I like
Everybody
that.
bought like the
Little Lotus back there.
81 or 2
Yeah, it was
pace
the
car and put it away,
They thought
thinking that was
for
the.
sure-
Oh my
If
God.
if you find one of these on Marketplace, it'll still say
Oh, I do.
delivery miles, plastic on the
Oh,
seats.
I
The
do.
Indy
There
Pace
isn't one of
Car
those.
Edition,
Yeah.
81, 82 Corvette or
isn't one?
whatever.
No,
So,
there is one, but I'm just saying every one of them is the first car. Oh yeah, it's big money.
new in
one
the
day.
plastic.
and it's like it's
Preserved.
still a 180 horsepower dog.
What is it, like 20 grand?
But I
No,
no,
they
no,
sell
they
for
sell, they sell
okay.
for
They
30
sell for,
maybe.
They sell
All
for more than I
right.
think
But
they're worth, but they
Adjusting for inflation, if you put that in the stock market, you've lost out on $1 million.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but it was probably one of the first cars that people thought this is the end of the C3 Corvette, and this is a special edition, and I'm gonna put it away because before that, nobody had ever thought of like
Saving a car.
I'm gonna put this car away and preserve it, and it's gonna be worth something special someday. I'm gonna carve out a bedroom in my house to pull this thing into and park it.
Remember,
for
'cause
30 years.
the collector car market, while it existed, a car from the 60s was basically a used car.
Yeah.
It wasn't looked at as a classic now.
Right.
So these cars, and like my 54s and 5s or whatever that exist, if somebody crashed them, they just didn't even fix it. It was like, well, it was a cheap car, and especially towards the end there. But yes, we're at the end of the C3. By 82, we got opening back glass, and they'd added, some body work, the chin spoiler, the built-in kind of swoopy spoiler in the rear. It looked better, but still made no horsepower. You had little things like they kind of did an early version of the Crossfire in the last year, but anyway, that's all well and good. The important thing here is they moved the production from St. Louis, Missouri to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and they started work.
I did not know this.
Yes. So they first made them in Flint, Michigan for the 5345. And then they made them in St. Louis, Missouri from there on out.
Wow.
Yeah. So believe it or not, it was not that far away from just the Corvette
They
factory.
still build some cars in St. Louis. I think GM or
They
maybe
might
not.
build
I mean,
like the Equinox or something there. I
You
have
get-
no
Yeah,
idea.
kinda
nothing
get-
exciting.
you kind of get shot on
But
your
I
way
also
to work.
didn't know that. I
Right.
thought it was always Bowling Green.
No, Bowling Green was a state of the art facility for what would be their state of the art Corvette.
Wichita has a few bad spots, but it's pretty idyllic.
No, St. Louis has you can't go across
Kansas
the bridge.
City, because you went to
Yeah, no.
college in Missouri.
I went to Missouri, University of Missouri.
Halfway between
Columbia.
Kansas City
Yes.
and-
every
and-
girl I dated was either from Kansas City or St. Louis, so I spent time in both cities.
Rejected by a lot of.
Wasn't
No, I
even-
was
Yes.
visiting
I was gonna let
families
that one
and
go.
stuff.
But
totally gonna let that one slide, but-
St. Louis. So we were filming the end of Car Trek, the Christmas special, the third one, and production ended. The show ended because of literal gunshots, a shooting a couple
sounds
of
right.
blocks away. We're supposed to do this long walkaway scenes and some other stuff, and the people were saying, because we dropped off these presents at this church in this really rough area, and they said, if you're here after dark, you guys are getting shot. And sure enough, pop, 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 pop.
It's
Anyway, that's St. Louis. So now Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Oh, now St. Louis won't be watching anymore.
It's now rural Kentucky. And anyway, I don't really know why or what, but like I said, obviously a factory could only get so big in
Okay.
use domestic. But anyway, so they made a brand new state of the art factory for a brand new state of the art car. Now remember, the C3 was pretty much the same car from 68 to 82. That is a long run. Now there's a lot of reasons for this. The economy's in the dumps, yada yada. But things were getting better. It's now 1983, which you will find they do not have a 1983 Corvette. It's
Right.
the only year they did not.
There's
make one.
like one.
There's one left.
Not
They
a,
made
not
like
a
40.
production one, but
So there's not
they just
not a
didn't
19
do it.
they did a
skipped
gap
it.
year like
Is that
like
when
what-
the sinkhole got him?
No, that's
I was like,
Like
I
later.
thought,
That's
I
like
thought I
Jag-
remember something
like
about a
Jaguar
sinkhole.
taking a year off.
Yeah.
It's not really because they started selling them in '83, I think, but they were all
yes.
84s.
You
Okay.
could buy an 84 in January or March of 83.
Right.
So it's
All right.
it's just they didn't have any 83s
Car
ready
of
for
the future.
Well,
That's an
yeah,
84.
Can't wait
Now,
for this exciting time.
It's so now is where I get obviously my pants swell.
This is where we're spending 3 hours
show
on
her
the
the little
C4
too far.
Corvette.
84
That's-
or something.
there you go.
84
That's 80 or-
Crossfire. No, that's
Well,
Tuneport.
it's still late. But the point is they made this new car. They made the 83s. Still new factory, totally new cars. The first time they'd redesigned the car since '63, essentially. Everything else would be kind of adapted and adapted and adapted. This is now no longer a body on frame car. It's a space frame car, as we all know cars to be. This is. Like I said, a massive step.
Elliot
away
loves
from-
these.
I do love these.
Nobody wants them.
Now, I love the later C4s, I want to say.
Nobody wants
I like
C4s
one thing
anyway.
about these.
What's that?
Digital dash.
Yes. See, there
Okay.
you go. That's
Digital
an
dash
early-
to me
So-
is cool.
Now,
19
look how much different that looks. Whether you like it or not,
Those wheels are amazing.
that now looks like it is, like I said, the version of somebody's, cyberpunk future where you go, whoa, that's what a car from the future looks like.
Right. So 1984, my
Yes.
dad is graduated
Oh,
from
yeah.
college, sitting on
Digital
oil
dash.
wells.
Yes.
He's a geologist, which he totally doesn't do that today. But he married my mother in 1984. They both in high school had 78 Trans Ams. My mom kept hers all the way through college. He thought he'd surprise her for a wedding gift, and it was a 1984 bright red Crossfire fuel injection Corvette. Surprised her and traded in the 78 Trans Am, her baby that she loved. And she was crying when she was taking that 78 Trans Am to the dealership to pick up this, which she only got to drive for
man.
a year before
Oh boy.
I
Yeah.
came along.
well,
And
at least she wasn't that mad.
it got traded in for a conversion
that reminds
van.
me of
Oh, yeah. And then now that's where your love of conversion
Yeah,
things began.
absolutely.
my
yes.
wife is probably thinking of a story very similar to that. Remember my M5, the E60 M5, the V10? That was my wife's, and it was her baby, and she loved it. I traded that in on a Ford Flex.
Oh,
and
that's
surprised
right.
her
Like,
on that.
what terrible choice.
What an insane choice. I didn't even know this story.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it was not well. Brooklyn was young, and the M5 was fine, but she was starting to talk about wanting something bigger, for Brooklyn and to haul her teacher stuff. And the M5 was a big sedan; you could fit stuff. So I got this harebrained idea that I was like, oh, I'll go find something at Mel Hambleton.
But they're hideous.
well,
they're-
back in
they had
2000
that
and when
retro
would that have
look.
been like 14? No,
earlier than that.
14 or
Flex
15
came out in like
And
08.
the Flex ended up being
Not good.
more unreliable than the V10 M5
Oh, it was
as far
bad.
as its
Yeah.
issues,
But
which
I
is
will give her this,
crazy
like-
because the M5 is
Yeah.
Yeah, she was not too pleased right off the bat, and then even worse when my best friend at the time, and still, he saw it. And my wife's a teacher, and he's like, "Nice school bus," and that was the end of that. I think we had that Flex for 2 months
because they
sold
had
it.
the
Did the metal side strake thing.
the side strakes and then the roof line. Yeah.
They were trying to call back to the Woody. It was supposed to be a
Right.
retro Woody.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, and it
Like
wasn't
I
even
said,
that nice.
An M5 did this, and you
Yes.
surprised her.
And it was an SEL. It wasn't even a good one.
You surprised her.
Yes,
That's the worst
Jeez.
surprise.
really stupid.
I was going to say that.
Yeah,
too.
but
This
the
is another
SEL
one. I
doesn't
think
look like
these
that. They don't look as cool.
They're
They're kind of
horrifically
boring.
unreliable.
I think they're horrible, but I remember at the time being like, at least I'm always a fan of when at least a manufacturer tries something. Like they
suppose,
weren't.
yes.
They did try something new here. They were like, we're going to make something that doesn't look like everything else. I like that about it. I don't want one.
Oh, Jake's got an idea. Hold on, he's laughing.
Oh,
Oh, is that the dub
Oh
edition?
my
Yeah.
god!
Anyway,
Nah, she would have
Anyway,
drove that probably.
back to 84.
Anyway,
Yes.
yes. So
Sorry.
84, this was a massive departure. I mean, like I said, the car looks cool. Also, gone was the T-top. Now they have a Targa top, so no center bar. Believe it or not, the engineers still said this car should have a center bar because it's not stiff enough for this.
Okay.
But
Why Crossfire? That's the big question. The new fuel injection system where the fuel from coming in from this side feeds this side
Yeah.
and that side. It's Crossfire.
if you
fuel
look at the
injection.
diagrams and all of the promotions for it, it looks like it's going to make a lot of sense. It's like, whoa, cool. I mean, what is it? Plymouth and those guys had, versions of, everything from over here going from over there, different things. There was something about like the idea was, the air rushing over this pod over. I don't really know how to describe it that well, but basically they thought it was a great idea. It turns out it was more or less two electronic carburetors.
It's Rochester
Yes,
2.0.
exactly.
From the 50s.
It was
and
so
60s,
bad
yeah.
that, yes, you can see it. It's essentially two EFI carbs sitting on top of the motor, and nothing works. It was the early 80s, heavily reliant on electronics. So people would just take these out and carb swap them even when they were fairly new. I mean,
Right.
you'd just get a big 4-barrel from O'Reilly's.
So 84,
84
nobody
is 1
wants,
year only.
Nobody wants because of that.
Right, but they didn't know it was bad at the time, and they still sold enough because people were excited about the design,
The new one,
and the
yes.
futuristicness. It's still, if you hop into one of those today, as Rob said,
How many were sold?
that dash, you'll have to Google it, Tyler. But more than 700.
Jeez.
It's
Yeah, I mean, I even knew
they
that the Crossfire was an
they sold a
unmitigated
decent
disaster.
amount of them. It's just that the engine was bad, and it was a 1 year only
Well, it
engine.
probably took a lot of people a little bit of time to figure
Yeah,
out how
they
bad
didn't-
they were, so they all sold right off the bat.
Holy
Yeah.
crap.
They sold
Did they make
yeah.
a lot?
1984, 51,000
See?
sold.
What?
See,
85, 39,000. Then it stays in the low
Yeah.
30s, going down
Pretty
to the
much
20s.
forever.
So 84 is the best selling year, obviously because they did it for almost
Yeah,
2
the
years, because
big-
83
well,
and 84 was all together for so long.
That is true. But like I said,
51,000 of them.
People didn't know the Crossfire was that bad yet, and people were excited.
That's why you see so many 84
That explains it.
Crossfires.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I always thought you see the Crossfire, you're like, oh, that's kind of one of the rare ones.
And I think one of these days it might come into its own. Not like
Was it
not,
ever-
not before I'm
well, production's too
dead,
high.
probably,
Okay.
but because of it, being like they only did it for 1 year. Look at all the other 1 year only
Right.
things.
So they
many
went
of
from
them.
Crossfire to tuned port.
tuned port
What is
injection.
tuned port injection?
Essentially, modern regular electronic fuel injection.
So they have
but they have
injectors.
Basically, they have injectors, and then they had different length intake runners. So if you look at the top of it, actually looks pretty cool. It has these kind of like tubes coming down from a central runner, and then actual regular. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, look at
See,
that.
it looks pretty cool, and then they're
Yes.
staggered.
Yeah, that is cool.
And like I said, it's a pretty good looking engine. And then, of course, horsepower is increased from like 205 to 250.
Wow.
But remember, guys, we're just coming out of the
Right.
bad period, and it's impressive that with the use of fuel injection technology, they were able to actually start making power and efficient and be
Right.
efficient. Before it was one or the other.
So then digital dashes, they changed. There's the first couple of year digital
so it's
dash.
like 84 to 89, maybe, or no, yeah, 88.
I feel like there was different generations of digital
There's
dashes.
there's a second generation.
But then that is rejected for whatever reason
Right.
to go back to needles and
It goes
everything
back
else.
to a kind of a hybrid. It goes back to needles for everything but the speedo.
Yeah.
And with the all digital dash, they had a few toggle switches that you could change the
right.
readouts.
It was really cool. That's
It's
what
really
I
neat.
feel like. So
But
that's
this is the next gen.
right.
This
So
is what I have.
If you do an 84 instrument cluster, it
looks so cool.
It looks like it's much newer than this.
It
That's the
does.
thing. They go back in time.
And also remember, so the 84, not only was this
that's so cool.
It's
I
so cool.
love
It has different color LEDs, so it appears to have a full color display. Now, remember, this was the time when computers were new and mysterious, and now your car is a computer. It literally even says like in-car computer or something on one of the upper right
Yes.
toggle areas. My dad and uncle told the story when these came out that some engineers at one of the places they were working had one of these and brought it out and was like, just sit in it, and their minds were it was like it blew people away at the time. I mean, it was just like, it's like what the Aston Martin Lagonda Dash must have been like. You'd be like,
Right.
whoa, I don't even have one of these in my house.
Yeah.
And here it is. This is the car. Like I said, it was all about.
It's a big
future.
selling point for dealerships to put them in the car and say,
And of
"Look
course,
at this."
the other design of the car, but that iconic wedge shape, which went kind of on for mostly in this era, but the general shape of the Corvette is wedgy.
So your car is not a Crossfire,
Correct.
obviously.
So-
it is not a tuned port.
Right.
It
is an LT1. So during this, and I wanted to touch on this because Mustang people have done this too. So Corvettes are selling. They kind of make some changes throughout the years. Nothing that's nuts. They had a really interesting manual transmission called the Doug Nash 4+3 when the cars first came out. So it's essentially a 4-speed manual, but it was attached to a 3-speed automatic overdrive that could be engaged at will. So this was mostly an emissions thing, but it was kind of their way of going, look, it's sporty and emissions. They're emissions friendly because every gear after second, so second, third, and fourth, each had second overdrive, third overdrive, and fourth overdrive. Now, it would be insane to row through them like that. Mostly it was you could put it in fourth and then clunk it down into overdrive for highway stuff. But it was kind of cool, totally unreliable. They eventually switched to a ZF 6-speed. That's worth mentioning. So then 1990 happens, and they have a car called the ZR1. that comes out. Now, this is not a separate model like it is now. Oh, there's like the perfect one.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Which, by the way, Jason Camisa has a great video on the history of the ZR1. Absolutely fantastic. That goes into how and why. But this was a very interesting car for them to make because remember, they're still pretty early in the Bowling Green factory, and this was not a separate car. It was an option. So the normal Corvette was about $30,000 by this time. If you wanted a ZR1, it was just an option that was $30,000. So you doubled the price of your Corvette.
And it didn't look all that different.
And it didn't look
it's
any
wider,
different.
obviously.
It's totally wider. They built it on a separate production line.
But
it is a
you look
different
at it,
car.
nobody would know that it's double the price. And you got, of course, you got the Lotus heads. You got all this amazing
all this
engineering.
stuff. That it's got a dual overhead cam V8. They made by Mercury Marine. All this Lotus engineering. It's a crazy car that, unfortunately for them, they didn't market well or make it set apart from the normal Corvette. It has 2 badges that are like this big,
Very tiny.
and a 3rd brake
Bottom
light.
right.
So I get excited when I see them because this was the coolest car ever when I was a kid.
Now, was that
And
motor built in
Oklahoma.
overseas? Right?
No.
Oh, no.
It was Oklahoma.
It was
Right.
close.
Yes.
Okay.
Boats.
boat
Oh,
motors.
where the Marine. Okay.
Mercury Marine.
Mercury Marine was
Now,
Oklahoma.
my dad had one of these when 95 or a 94, 95. I've got a picture of it.
No boat motors at the Stang Bang.
No.
No, but no motor. But there was a lot of motor boating.
Yeah, that's true.
know?
There you go. Yeah.
I hate you. It's only
It's only episode
we
one.
know why this is going to go so wrong for me. Everybody here knows why.
So, well, like I said,
yes.
my dad had one of these. He'd spent, he bought it. He did the whole thing. Loved the car, and it was such an expensive car because you have to remember it was, $75,000, $80,000 car in '94, adjusted for inflation. That's crazy for a C4 Corvette, for a car that everyone treated as if you just had a $35,000 car. It was like, no, nobody cared. Yes, you were faster than anything else on the road, and these were called King of the Hill because they were beating everything, track, drag. It was a faster
Right.
car than anything
And I
else.
think it was a 24-hour endurance record for 175 mile an hour
Yep.
average, something like that.
Continuous, yeah.
Continuously,
Continuously.
non-stop average.
Yeah.
Well, they stopped
Yeah.
at fuel,
Well,
but as
yeah,
far
of
as the
course.
fuel,
Yeah,
they
They
obviously,
leave
but
the
I
car
mean-
running, and it was just
Crazy.
It's insane. The car's
That's
capable of, I
impressive.
think, 180. It was like I said, it's a nuts car. It even has a key that actuates the timing, like a Bugatti. It had like a full power key.
Nobody lasted that long at the Stang Bang either. Yeah.
Are you done? We have a whole
No.
season of this.
I know. Aren't you
Like
ready?
you're going to use them all up in the first one. Like,
I think you can keep coming.
and
up with new ones.
we have not gone after you
Not yet.
I had to introduce
Nor-
you all. They all
Yeah,
know
yeah.
me. So I would
Well, the
assume,
stories we have.
Yeah. Anyway,
Glad this isn't a
so I
couch.
wanted to mention that because one of the things it introduced was a little bit different styling. In 1990, the Corvette was still angular front and rear. The ZR1, they made it kind of have a pointy front and this kind of wide, booty, bubbly rear. Everyone kind of liked it. So in 1991, for the regular Corvette, they introduced a new body style, essentially. It had a rounded, updated front end and a rounded rear end, different side gills. It was the new Corvette. Go out and buy it. All new for 1991. New interior. Everything was, Still had the L98. The very next year, 92, still the new Corvette, totally better, different motor. They put an LT1 in there. So
Yes.
now you're making 300 horsepower. Now that name is back.
Finally,
from
the
70s.
power is back. So-
now you're back in the power.
So this is your Corvette.
This is my
basically. So what year is
I have a
yours?
92. I have a first year.
92. It's yellow.
Yes.
How did you get it? Because these are a high school car, right?
This was a high school car.
Obviously, your dad's influence in that
Yes.
a little bit.
Yes. So I grew up. My first car was another 92 Corvette. That was aqua. There was that. What do they call it? It's like aqua something metallic. Bob had one this color. It's kind of like Barbie blue. Is how I describe it.
Okay.
But it was an automatic, and the car had like 30,000 miles. It was like really perfect. And I was 16, 17. I was like, man, I just wish I could modify this car and drive stick shift and blah blah blah. So some time went on, and we found what I can only describe as a pretty ratty stick 92 Corvette, kind of over like on the south end of town, like at some shop.
For Wichita, the south side.
That's the
Not good. It's by some railroad track.
South Broadway is like where you go buy a serious hoopty.
I think the car, because he thought something was horribly wrong with it, he wanted like $4,000 for it.
Whoa.
And it was like, my dad took it out for a drive, and he was like, I don't know why you think something wrong with it. It's the exhaust, the baffles have fallen out of the exhaust. So when he revved it, it would go boom. So it sounded bad, but I was like, he's like, it's not broken, it's fine. And a 6-speed car like in this era was just hard to find.
Rare
And
color.
so but it started out as black rose metallic, which is fancy for purple.
But
And now it's
And
yellow.
now
You
it's
went
yellow.
from-
Yes, I had it repainted because first of all, the clear coat had failed. It was all ratty. The glass top had like been kind of spidered out from the sun. It was a driver, and then I, both to learn on stuff and everything, just started slowly getting it better and better, fixing broken things and driving it and enjoying it. And eventually it was like, now it's a really good car, but it still looks kind of like crappy. So we got it painted, and it was like, I know it's against what I would do now as far as originality, but it was like, oh, I really like red and I really like red. But so I've always kind of wanted a yellow Corvette. So I painted it the C5 or C6 Millennium Yellow, which is different than the yellow they had in the 90s. And then I got the color matching top. It was, like I said, I've kind of made it the car that I wanted, like a C4, like a OEM plus C4. It looks, it has Grand Sport wheels. I think it's
How many miles
beautiful.
are on it now?
like 110,000.
Wow.
I've
Okay.
always liked that
Yeah.
car.
And it, like I said, I
Great
just
road
love that
presence.
car. I've done everything. I've slept in the back of that car. I mean, I have
With who?
no. It's a one person. It's a one sleeper. It was out of desperation.
Okay.
There's definitely one of those. My parents.
She kicked you out.
Yes.
No,
Like,
I wasn't
you
old
said
enough
some-
for that. I
Oh,
wasn't
You
old
yeah.
said
enough for that
something
yet.
or did
No,
something,
no.
and she's like,
Nowhere
"Get
else
out."
to go.
And you're-
Yeah.
Oh,
Look
look,
at that.
there's me and my C4.
Oh yeah,
So,
ladies.
yeah.
Wow,
ladies,
yeah.
This is what you can expect.
All yours.
So yes, I do have a major soft spot for the 92 through 96 cars because by this time
That's a soft spot, all right.
they
there.
had improved.
God.
Well, it's like the hard spot that you
It's
probably had all
shrinkage.
weekend at the gangbang, the stangbang. Jeez,
You,
I couldn't even say
you
it.
screwed that up yourself.
Oh no!
no.
Oh
Finally,
my
it
God.
slipped.
You had one shot.
Dang it!
Finally, it slipped.
It was my one chance.
There it went.
So that ends, I suppose,
pretty
the
much-
C4,
They
right?
made the ZR1. They didn't make that many. The
Grand
last
Sport.
thing they did was they made a Grand Sport. So for 1 year only, they also came out with a new engine, which was a bizarre move. They had the LT4, which was a modified LT1, but it now made 330 horsepower, and they only offered it in the stick shift cars. So in 96, if you got an automatic, you got an LT1. If you got a stick, you got an LT6. And then they also offered a collector's edition, and the Grand Sport, which was essentially ZR1-esque styling. As you can see, instead of making the whole car wider, they just kind of made a fender flare. But that paint scheme is now, as you've seen in prices, it's just a paint scheme. And it makes those cars so much more valuable than a regular 96 LT4 car. These will regularly trade 60, 70. If it's a convertible with the red seats, they're 90. It's crazy.
More than a ZR1, late ZR1.
Sometimes. Yes.
Is that a painted stripe or vinyl?
These are all
that makes
painted.
that makes no sense.
All
because
painted
It makes no
stripes.
sense. 'cause
I'd have
the
a
ZR1's
late
a better car.
ZR1 any
Yeah.
day of the week.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
people
absolutely.
love this paint scheme so much that
Okay.
it's always baffled me. I'm like, why are these more valuable than the better car? It's because look, this one looks cool. The other one looks like a C4 Corvette.
Right. Well, they once again needed to sell the end of the line. They knew
Right.
there was something new brewing in Bowling
So
Green,
once,
Kentucky.
once again, as if they hadn't spent enough money,
Right.
they designed the Corvette from the ground up again in 1997. For 1997, they had been designing it before then. So now you have the C5. And interestingly enough, this was the last car. There's Jake and his
There
C5.
it is.
Wow.
There it is. Man spreading. So that's
Yeah,
that
really.
Car Wizard discovered, like when he did videos saying buy this, not that if he spreads his legs as big as he possibly can, like
to show bulge.
for whatever reason,
Exactly what I was going
like
to say.
for whatever reason,
why Tyler's doing
the
it.
engagement and the watch time went way up because people are just sort of hypnotized. So Jake needed a man spread more a little bit for his engagement, but yes, that is the peak. C5 is the peak of jean shorts, New Balance,
Yes.
mine special because of this,
And
I want 3 times what it's worth when I sell it.
Yes. And this is what's funny I meant to say about the C4. One of the things about it is if you've ever gotten in and out of one, it has a big like hump to get into. It has like where the body is, and you sit kind of below and into these pretty narrow, pretty supportive
Right.
bolstered seats.
Very tight,
Now
again.
these are difficult cars to get in and out of, which was a huge complaint. Chevy listened to their customers. Also found out that it's it's an American car being sold to American people, and they're fat.
They're getting bigger. Yeah.
And so what happened is the C5 got rid of the door sill. Now it's flat, and they have what I would call as fat man seats. They went to being these. I mean, they hug you. It feels great. And you
They
get in a
look big.
C5, and it's like this. This might have more bolstering. But if you were a fat guy, you could fit in one. And of course, we all know how that went. Of course, that's the Corvette you think of when you think of like you said, the Corvette guy. This
Right.
is where the meme started coming out.
So
these are only owned by fat people?
no, it just they were more fat friendly.
there's big innovations though.
Yes.
The birth of the LS engine
We all know and love.
400
and
horsepower?
the
No,
transmission.
350.
The transmission goes in the back.
Yes. So now we work with
We've
the
moved the transmission to the back.
transaxle. Yes, which now
Okay.
is better for weight distribution and everything like that. It's got a torque tube and all that stuff, but now clutch changes are now a job as opposed to before. If you've ever had to change it, do anything, anybody who's worked on a car. But no, this is now essentially what the Corvette was going to be from here on out.
There's that
There's
big beefy
look at
torque
that.
tube.
But yeah, there's the LS, which of course we didn't know at the time how much that would go into everything. But it's it's a great modern motor, and it came out in '97. Of course, changes were made, and believe it or not, '97 you could only get as a coupe, even though they designed the car ground up to be a convertible.
Right. The convertible had come back
Yes.
in the C4 in 80.
Right, I meant to mention that. 86.
86. Whoa.
With the pace
Okay.
car again, which
Wow.
whatever, but it was still exciting to be able to get a convertible again.
So who's the designer of the C5 Corvette?
no, this one's
Harley
Dave,
Earl.
No, yeah, Harley Earl.
Carl reanimated from
No,
death.
so
Save
it's
us.
David Hill. I think was the main dude at this point, but he was not the designer.
Let's see.
Better chance it was Hank Hill.
C5.
Hank Hill. Well, no, I've got it. No, because Dave McClellan left in the C4 era, and then I think it's Dave Hill.
It says John Cafaro.
See, that's what I'm
Does that
saying.
sound
I don't know the
familiar?
designer. Yeah, and sorry, John, if you're out there listening, but I have seen the clay models.
Tom
in these
Peters.
But
Yeah. An ACC design firm contributed.
See, now it's designed by committee.
Well, there you go. Yep.
corporate.
So now we start losing these iconic characters that are heavily swaying things. Now this is all focus group and engineering. But like I said, the car's established by this point.
Right.
This is a lot of people's first experience with Corvettes.
The first Corvette I ever drove.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to have a birthday present from my dad, and he just really wanted to go. Bondurant School of High Performance
sweet.
Driving. I was 17, and they were 50th anniversary yellow stick
03s.
Corvettes, not Z06s, and we just thrashed them in the desert
Oh, I
4
believe it.
days. I'd driven stick like a couple of times, and my friend's a Zuzu Trooper. So I was not too proficient at
jumping
a stick,
straight into
just
it.
going right
Yeah.
into track driving, learning heel toe and all that stuff
That poor
in a
car.
C5, just boiling the brakes and all
it.
that stuff.
That's awesome.
And that fell in love with cars then.
That's the only one I've ever driven. I have driven a C5.
Okay.
We'll go as we go into more. You might like the newer ones.
I like the C5.
You like the
I
C5?
love the torque, the instant power. It felt strong.
They are.
The interior, the
Is this
bits
one? Is this
were
one you
hideous.
test drived and lowballed? Didn't end up buying?
Yes.
Okay.
Good one.
Yeah. Great.
Well, it's always going to.
Sounds
The answer is
about right.
always going to be yes.
Sounds about right.
They were furious and you left before
Oh,
they
they
could hit
wanted
you.
like 5,000 under what it was worth. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead, Elliot.
So anyway, they had some stuff. That one of the pictures that Jake was showing earlier is one of the major things that they did try to do with this generation is they tried to make a strip. They didn't try. They did. They made a stripped down entry level Corvette, which they called the FRC, the fixed roof coupe. So that's what it is. It has a different. The roof is fixed. You can no longer remove it. And what they tried to do with these cars is basically make something that somebody could get for less than the 40 grand or whatever they were at the time. It was a more stripped down car, not as highly optioned. Came from regular no climate control, that kind of thing. It was a stripper Corvette. But what they also found is that it was stiffer with that roof on there. They only made it for 1 year, 1999. They sold okay. But, it was kind of one of those weird things. In fact, they'd actually considered making it a V6 version.
like a 3800.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the Camaro was a 3.8.
Right.
Which
And
would have been
they
interesting.
called it internally Billy Bob.
Wow.
It's like
great
they
for their
knew.
base.
It probably would have gotten like 40 miles per gallon and just been
Oh, yeah.
It would have been
crazy.
pretty good. Yeah, that's one thing we kind of forget to mention. By the C4 and C5, they legitimately get pretty darn good gas mileage. You mix in the tall gearing, and by the time that the efficiency, they really do get about 30 on the highway, which is
That's insane.
absolutely bonkers
That
for the
640
performance
is
you
only
get.
getting 24.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
no,
you
no
should also-
Mustang going to the Stang Bang got that kind of
No,
MPG
no,
either.
you guys didn't even get six
That's
gears
10.
until like
Right.
recently.
10 now.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
No, really, if
Been
you're
banged 10
if you're
times.
cruising down the highway in a C5, C6, or whatever in sixth gear, it's like 1,000 RPMs.
Can you
The thing
fit
is,
golf
like,
clubs in that?
oh yeah,
Really?
Yeah, definitely. They designed it so you
I
can
would
fit
hope so.
Yeah, this is a C6, by the way, but it's okay.
Oh, that's a 6.
It's okay.
Shit. You can say shit, right? We haven't even.
Though this might be going to YouTube on
That's deep.
the
We're
YouTube, but
we're
still,
deep enough now. Let's
No,
not.
yeah.
I suppose we'll try not to, because
Okay.
there'll be a YouTube channel for this. There'll be everywhere else where you can see. I sort of said that at the beginning as far as like where you can watch it. Jake is going to have to put it up everywhere. So everywhere you can listen to a podcast, but
Oh.
yeah, maybe not on YouTube.
Okay.
It might trigger some things. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
I accidentally left
but Stang Bang is fine. And motorboating.
So innuendo works, but I accidentally left an F-bomb in my 1923 Packard video, and I wonder if that's what sort of made it not do well.
Like one you could hear.
But
Well, because like I was trying to tighten up the battery, and it shorted and sparked. And well, we'll have to bleep that. But anyway, sorry, Jake's gonna have to edit. But
I have heard that it's when how early in the video you cuss is the thing.
interesting.
So that's what I've heard. If you're like pretty deep into it, that's fine.
We're at the C5 and things are going off the rails here, so that's pretty
Yeah,
good.
All right,
So
we'll speed through the next because
So,
most
you're top
people
of the
already
roof.
know the history here. So now you get the Z06 starting in 01.
Yes.
They realized the FRC body was the one to do it in because it was stiffer, lighter,
Yes.
yada yada. But now you get the name return of this from the
did
63.
your dad have a C5?
He never did because he didn't like the big blobbiness of them.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
surprising. I know we drove them. And he was like,
2001, 375 horse
385
or 385, and then it's
And then
405.
every
yeah, I
year
remember
after
the
that was 405
nameplate.
So it's like
405.
a different intake manifold, like a different tune and something else. It was like a
Right.
very small
But it makes a
change.
big difference in the value of that
does.
first year Z06, and you think, oh, I'm getting a deal, and you're getting
No, it's
20
'cause
less
you're getting
horsepower.
You're getting the one that
Which
nobody.
is kind of silly.
Yeah.
So I had
Still
a
great.
hoopty version of this in blue. I
Yes.
bought it for under $10,000.
which is still a steal.
Yeah.
still a steal. It was still a hoopty when I sold it, but it was going down the road just fine.
And you tracked it,
I would
right?
I would like to get one of these again. And actually, I just got the wire today to sell old 62.
What?
Whoa.
It's going away?
It's going.
That's
I-
news,
I
folks.
had
but
to-
I love that.
I had to pay some bills, so but I want a Corvette that I can
you can drive.
use
Well,
and
what's
enjoy
a-
a bit more. And I
What's a
think it's
usable Z06 go for now?
A nicer one, 35.
What?
that no,
They're not that high.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Low mileage.
Right?
no.
Low mileage.
You can still find them in the mid 20s. No
Yeah,
problem.
but they're
So-
they're usually pretty high mileage.
no, you can still find nice ones in the mid 20s.
I don't know.
I might do that, or I might do C6. But this is the
great
one
cars.
where it hits me at the right time in my life. That was like the Corvette poster car on my wall and the models that I had and all that stuff. So that's the one, and I tracked it and learned how to drive on a track with one of them. So it's just like, man, I just like to get a nicer one.
I remember
Again.
when those were driving around, I would be, what did I have? I had something that was reasonably fast.
Also a
when those
Mustang.
first came out. No.
A new Edge Mustang that was
No,
not
I
nearly
don't-
as fast.
I'd have to go back. What year was that released?
01 to
01, 02,
04.
03?
Yeah, 01 to 04.
Oh, it would have been, I had a 964. Like a 1991 911.
Nice.
That you bought for $10,000. That's now
I bought, it from,
150,000.
I bought it off of Adrian and at Gorgeous and Company Volvo back when it was Gorgeous
Wow.
Volvo.
Yeah.
They had it on their lot.
How much?
21,000 probably
21
back then.
for a 964.
That's wild.
It's now $100,000.
Yeah, ridiculous. And that car was amazing. That car had mods done to it. It was a C2
Jeez.
stick. But I remember specifically when those came out, because I was always wanting to race everybody. That thing wasn't fast, but they were quick. But whenever I saw one of those with that badge, I was like,
Like,
nope,
oh, no.
not going to
Yeah.
touch it.
These-
There was always something about those that had road presence.
But
where I was
Z06
like,
was top dog. There's no ZR1 for the 5th generation
Correct.
Corvette. They decided not to. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's interesting. They didn't do a 01, obviously, probably did because it didn't do that well the last time, but they did bring back a badge from the 60s. And again, also from my childhood when I was younger, my best friend's dad had one of these, but he had like B&B exhaust and headers and stuff. So it was the loudest car, newer car I'd ever heard. And I just remember being like, this is so fast and crazy. And so I have fond memories
Right.
of C5s as well. I've driven one with him from here to DC. They're great.
the first first Corvette I ever sold was a C5 Z06.
Really?
And working at the Chevy dealership. And
Oh, I thought you meant at your lot. I was like, wow,
no.
nice.
So I was working at the Chevy dealership, and it was at the used part. And I was pretty new at the store. I was there for maybe a couple of weeks, and this customer came in, and he had his '84 Corvette, and I talked to him. And
What a jump that would be.
Went from his '84 to a 2003.
That would feel like a rocket
oh my
ship.
God, yeah.
And he wanted 15 on the trade for his C4, and they were at like 10. And so, so way off on the trade. So they didn't think that they were going to be able to make the deal. And it's like, but I knew enough about Corvettes to be like, it's the 84, it's the Crossfire, it's the one nobody wants. And then I go out there and, it's like, but show me, like, I want to talk to the sales manager about this car and talk it up. So like, let's go around and look at it and all this stuff. So we go in and get in, start it up. And I noticed that the digital gauge is dead.
That does happen.
And I'm like, did you notice the gauge was dead? He's like, yeah. And I was like, well, isn't the gauge, and at the time there wasn't rebuilders, but isn't that thousands of dollars? He's like, yeah. I was like, so you're actually probably getting away with something because we're not going to be able to retail this with the gauges.
Right.
Like, you're doing pretty well. It's like, well, that's probably why, starting to get old and things are starting to act up. So I go into the sales manager's office and said, look, we probably could get this if we come up another $1,000. And he did. It came back. It's like, I found another 1,000. Sold. I looked like a hero of a salesman.
I bet you did.
To do it. And this is when the new car store and the used car store was different salesmen, different people, but you could go either side. But there was dedicated new and dedicated used areas. And I was dedicated new guy. And that was my first time coming over to the used hut. The used car guys had their own little building. And their prized car, this Z06, I came in and sold it like a stud. And that was
well done.
Made like $600-700,
Really?
which I was 21 years old. That was that
sold
was
as
a good.
Z06.
Yeah, that was back when there's still money in car sales.
Yeah.
Which it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Usually, it was selling Cobalts. It was $200 or something like that. And I really wasn't that good of a salesman, to be honest. When I opened my own car dealership, I was terrible. Like,
I know.
I was the
But
worst.
that day with that car,
yeah,
you felt like a rock star.
I felt pretty good about myself, my skills. So
Yeah. Okay.
But usually when Rob shows up, like to look at a Mustang,
you blew me off.
Geez.
Of course, you offered.
I had my wife with me.
You
and
offered
still blew me
over
off.
$5,000 less.
There wasn't even an offer. I couldn't even get you to come out
You came
to
in,
look at it.
You drove it,
Yes, remember? Because it wouldn't even hold an idle because they pulled the tune out of it.
right?
And so it would just sit there and
Yes.
start it back up.
And you offered basically a number that
you
would
called-
be worth if it didn't have an engine
Well, I
in
think
it.
you called it a cream puff.
It is. It
Oh,
was.
that's him being a used car salesman.
There was
See, that's
nothing
what you do. You go,
cream
look
or
at this.
puff about that.
because it had a cam and a tune on it, but otherwise it was a really nice.
No, it had
Yeah.
the paint coming off the back bumper.
No.
It was.
I like
No,
the,
you're
the,
making
the,
this up.
the
the
different
body
recollections
panels
of
are-
this
You're
same
making this
event.
up. You're
Oh,
making this up.
no, you are way overstating
Anyway.
that car.
Anyway,
The C5.
we're done with the C5.
Okay.
So we
now we're
mosey
C6.
on to the
So
C6.
C6 is-
05.
That's
We're jumping right into the Z06. But
505
I was
horsepower.
graduating high school.
Yes, there we go.
And I wanted one so bad.
they had the great marketing campaign. Do you remember? They had this was the start of the American Revolution when they did the Rev, all those commercials. They came out. This was a really great time for Chevy and a great time to be an enthusiast.
Well, and I'm an idiot. So I go and I think I can talk my dad into buying me a new C6 Corvette for high school graduation present.
Wow.
So, and I do everything. I go and I have the brochure. I have the spec, like the base, whatever, for $50,000. And he is jokingly entertaining the notion, but not serious.
So
He's just
giving
like,
you some
but
false
you're
hope.
in there thinking,
He's like,
like,
you were
yeah.
going. You're going.
you're like,
yes.
oh my
Yes.
god,
okay, yeah, it gets 30 miles a gallon. Okay, all right. And then he calls up the insurance agent. Just let's just see. He calls up, and how much to insure an 18-year-old on a 2005 Corvette? And it was something
Oh, my
absurd at the
God.
time, like $300 or $400 a month, and then. And I knew I was sunk, and I knew he was being sarcastic. At that point, I was smoked.
So what did you end up with?
A used BMW, which was still a very nice car, still a spoiled little brat. But that was like,
Yeah.
I had the brochure. I think I still have the brochure, just pouring
What
over it.
was
I
it
thought
about it? Was it the body?
It really does. So they came in. This is the first fixed headlight car, which everybody was in uproar about.
Oh, yes.
Hilariously.
I
Even though
remember
it
that.
looks great, it was just one of those old guy, and as a Porsche guy.
Oh, I do.
If something changes, everyone flips out. I mean, that pop-up headlights by the C5 looked so bad. I mean, they were they made it look droopy. And honestly, if you're on the highway, you put those things up and you could feel the front end lift because they were like scooping the front wheels off.
right.
It was like not a good thing. It was time.
Well, people said this was Ferrari-esque.
Right.
That was the design was Ferrari
Boy, were
inspired
they
and all that
not-
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Ahead of their
not
time a
at
little
all.
bit.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm right there with you. I remember getting really excited about these cars. I was already a massive Corvette guy by this time. This is the first car I got to see at the Corvette factory being made. So it was like, oh man, this is so cool. So yeah, fixed headlights, a little bit of different styling. Now it's still essentially an improved C5. This is not a ground up design. Again, this is a revolution, as they an evolution of the C5. But they made a lot of great updates. The interior is much better. Tech was getting better. Now you could get navigation in the cars. Now it's not worth a damn now. But at the time, it was like you should, at this price point, have heated seats. You should have a nav screen.
I only sold one new one of these when I was a salesman at the Chevy store. 2007. I think it was Daytona Sunset Metallic. So that
that's nice
orange
color.
coppery color.
Bronzy kind of thing.
And beautiful color. And it was this Asian guy buying it. And
wouldn't have called that.
Well, I guess I don't know. But anyway, he shows up.
All right then.
He shows up early, coming off work or whatever, and it wasn't cleaned yet for delivery. It was still from sitting outside or whatever, dusting, all that stuff. And he threw a tantrum, an absolute tantrum, like yelling, angry, furious. Like, I was supposed to go do this and do this with the car right now, and it's not ready. And just like I just ruined his life, so much so that after he yelled at us, he went and sat outside, and then his wife or girlfriend was rubbing his temples. This is a thing.
Wow.
This is okay, we got to bring him down. I'm going to rub his temple and like just scratch his head and all this stuff. And I went I took the car myself and physically washed it myself. Like, just went in the recon bay, the whole clean, which you don't do. As far as salesmen, don't usually do that, and there's a whole clean for delivery and the process and all that stuff. I was like, screw it, I'm just doing it. We're not, because there's a bunch of cars being sold at that day, and you have to sort of wait in line. So that is the one. That's it. I had actually one years later, a Daytona Sunset Metallic, 05 or 06 automatic. So
nice.
Missed that too. That's the thing with this one going. I feel like that's where I need to get.
They're
in.
Yeah, especially because you kind of have these connections with the C5 and 6. I think it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, no, the C6 was kind of just, like I said, evolution of the car. Got some new features, electronic door handles. They're kind of squeezed and they popped open. It was it was fun.
And the people that didn't know poppers, like there's the guy that, have you heard about the guy dying in the Corvette because he?
There's a physical physical release. But yeah, the battery died. The door didn't work.
The door didn't.
But it's not. There's a very obvious.
But there was a guy's body found in his Corvette where he was stuck, and the owner's manual stuck open, and he couldn't find the hatch, and so they found his mummified corpse in his Corvette because he couldn't figure it out.
Corpse vet.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
right.
Wow.
That's like, I wonder if that exists. Like the dead rapper Murcielago I almost bought.
Wait, what?
Oh, you had a chance on that car?
Yeah, it was $160,000.
Died in it?
Have you seen it? No.
No, so it was yellow with red interior, and this rapper had it. He got shot, I believe. And his funeral, they posed him, instead of a casket, they posed him in his car. So there's photos of this corpse
Seriously?
in his rapper outfit. In
threw him in the car?
in the Murcielago.
That's what he wanted.
People tried to like get rid of this history. So it was a yellow on red interior car, and now it's a black interior car, but it's a gated manual Mercy.
There's a dead guy in it.
There
It was. I mean, then they buried his body, but they put him on display in the car for the
worse.
funeral.
Well, so when you buy a house that somebody's died in and you have to disclose that, this was different. He didn't die in the car.
Well, it's weird though. I mean, it's weirder because you would hear a story, the person dies in the car.
Are you putting in dead rapper Murcielago?
Rob, I would actually prefer this though because he would have already been embalmed and all that stuff. I wouldn't want the Corvette that the guy was in for a while when everything started to let go. That's gross.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
Yeah, that's gross.
I mean, do you think that's where the ghost comes in? Like, there's more chance it's going to be
There he
haunted?
is.
Look,
Where?
it's hard to see. Yeah, look,
Viewed in style is
he
what
looks
it
like
says.
a mannequin.
Oh, what jersey is that? It's not
Not
Chiefs.
sure.
It might be
49ers?
49ers,
Yeah.
it looks like. Because he's got,
Yeah.
what is that on his hat?
But he's got a velvet rope there blocking him off. But
Oh, it's so good. McDonald's spec.
Unbelievable.
yeah. Anyway, C6 Corvette. We're talking about door poppers.
Yeah,
anyway,
door poppers.
Many of those
At
at
the
the
time, it
Stang
was one of
Bang.
those. Corvettes have always been, kind of like debuted new technology, and that's something that we see now kind of a lot. But in 05, that was really, really cool. So in 06, they come back out with the next generation of the Z06. As we all know now, the hot car. This I still have a poster of on my wall in this color because I love that they advertised it in yellow. This is now a 7-liter 427 small block. So we're bringing back a lot of callbacks from the past. 505 horsepower. So it's 100 more horsepower than the outgoing
But it turns out it's the motor that likes to go pop goes the weasel.
Yes.
Yeah,
These have valve guide issues. And what you got is, I believe, some valve float issues that would then cause
I bought a blue
catastrophic
one,
failure.
and it showed up tapping and Freddie actually bought it from me.
I know.
wow, really?
It showed up to me.
Built it,
Oh, man.
and
Was it tapping on you?
It was.
Yeah.
It was probably was.
I
but
think
It was.
so.
It was the dead of winter when it was delivered. So it was
Right.
more like I put it inside and I cleaned it.
So would this be the beginning of the hot motors with issues? Because I know going forward it was
I mean,
little bit.
no, I mean,
really, this was, and also they didn't discover this issue until later on. This was not a known issue.
It's
when
not
the car,
like in the Stang Bang with the GT350 and the Voodoo motor, where it was like
yeah,
an
they
instant
discovered
problem.
that. They
yeah,
discovered
that was
the-
another big problem.
They
Yeah.
discovered that
Where-
year.
Instantly,
Yeah.
yes.
This was pretty much a few 5-10 years ago when the car's already way old.
Right.
They were like, oh, by the way, these years, it was like 06 to 08 have this issue.
Yeah, but Freddie, he was able to fix it and build it for even more power, and then I blew up, I think, the rear axle or something like that, doing a clutch kick or whatever. Which
He keeps doing. No, I don't want to.
On brand.
Yeah, so that I've had a C5 or C6 Z06, but very briefly, and that's another one where I'm like, that's something I'd like to explore.
I just got done, so I do that enthusiast tour with Worldwide, and they let me drive cars. And on the second day, I had to get something. The first day, I had a Di Tommaso Pantera, which was
Well,
Cool.
that's right up Stang Bang alley.
Yeah,
like
Push
that.
it is.
forwards,
That's
yes.
that's going on my road.
Rob's alley. But anyway,
Okay.
the next day I had my co-host with me, and I knew it was gonna be an 80-degree day, and I knew that she was not gonna put up with hot, loud, rattly Ford thing and with no air conditioning. So I opted for something with air conditioning.
So Elliot has a co-host, a lovely
Yes.
woman
Let's go
that
ahead and
is
tell this
from
story.
news media, not necessarily a car person, but is very good as far as bouncing off of Elliot as far as conversation.
bouncing.
Where Elliot, not like I mean,
What?
like
He's married, man.
no, I mean
What in
in
the
conversation where
Yes.
Elliot, I
Explain
like
that one
this. Tell me about
next
why
time.
this car is so cool. So she doesn't have the car knowledge, but she's a great presenter.
Yes.
And she had to leave early for some of it. And this is when I was watching Elliot's live stream when it wasn't competing. And he decided to say when she left and another guy came in to replace as his
and I want to
co-host.
say an older bald man.
And he said, I've just replaced beauty for brains.
Look, there's us. We're in an SLR right there.
Wait, you said I would just replace beauty?
So when the
No.
the guy came to co-host, he said, I've replaced beauty for brains here. What's her
did
name? I'm
say
sorry,
that.
she's
You
gone.
did
She
that?
died.
I said that on air. We
On air?
are
On air.
because it's live.
Basically saying his
Yeah.
co-host
was
is
a dummy.
not Brian. Yeah, I
the
know.
dummy.
I know.
Oh,
I
Jeez.
just kind of was like, I wanted to address the jarring difference in person
Right.
that was next to me now, because everyone's like, "Ooh, pretty blonde."
That's literally
I'm
looks
sorry,
like-
her name is escaping. Kayla is
She's a sweetheart.
very sharp presenter, and doesn't know much about cars, but enjoys. I mean, but it's a good. It's a good back and forth between you two. A good intercourse of conversation.
no, intercourse. Yes.
Yeah.
A good intercourse.
But yes, so I did say that live on air. Tyler was like aghast. And I came back, and you and April were both like, "We can't believe you said that." And I'm in my mind being like, "Said
Yes.
what?" I didn't even think about it. I was just like, I was just addressing.
So
No,
for
just a
day
quick-
2 of the rally, you and
Anyway,
Kayla were in
so
a C6.
Yes, me and Kayla were in an 09 Atomic Orange, similar color, C6 Z06, and it had like 20,000 miles.
Yeah.
It was great, and like I said, I drove the car all day, and it just reminded me again how great those cars are and how much of it, like I said, it's a modern good. And trust me, the 505 horsepower still feels very strong.
Yes.
Like you think in the day we live, we have 700, 800,000 horsepower, this and that, but that still, it has a way of the gearing and the torque of feeling so freaking fast.
I would say the car's better looking. Rob, would you agree as a non-Corvette
Absolutely.
person?
Are these getting more in your
These are,
wheelhouse?
and I will say, it's interesting that when the picture came up, I have driven one of those, and I remember exactly where I drove it and how insane it was. It was literally between PF Chang's over there. Like there's a road that goes through. And I
the nice road, yeah.
yes, through there, and that thing was nuts.
Yes.
See, I hit a deer in that in my SL. Like
You did?
It bounced off
In
the
that
hood
area?
there. It didn't hurt the car, but a long time ago.
Wow. Ooh.
But the other big improvement on the C6 versus C5, the interiors.
Yes, the interior is a big-
Gone are the Fisher Price
my
plastic
God.
era.
God, and the
of,
radio
like,
they used in
Pontiac
trucks.
Firebird.
It was, you got in a Sierra, there was that radio. You get in the nicest car they make, Chevrolet's Halo car, that radio. It was
finally some quality on the inside, which is nice, and some pretty good tech and some great performance.
Now this
The
is an
Corvette-
05, but it does demonstrate pretty much all of them, and it's looking good. Traction controls being more advanced. The technology is good in the car. Also, I forgot to mention we're back to totally needle gauges again.
Right.
But it does have, the optional heads-up display, which you could get on the C5, but that was really cool. I mean, it wasn't the first and only car to have it. I mean, you could get it on some Pontiacs and stuff back in the day, but the Corvette version would display performance data right on the windshield. And at the time, in C5s and C6, I think it looks like an alarm clock because it's just, green text. But it was still really neat.
Right.
But yeah, the interior touch points.
But everything in here
nice.
is very solid, very reliable. Of course, the LS has that crank pulley wobble thing. Whatever. Yeah. Okay, deal with that. But it doesn't have like these massive mechanical gotchas that so many other automakers have, which is great.
Especially because they essentially use that motor and so many other things. They were very well built. Okay, other than the Z06 in 08, there's an XLR.
What is an XLR?
This is a North Star.
All right.
Although I love this car.
Thanks, Jake.
I guess Jake wants us to mention that the XLRs on the Corvette chassis.
It did come out at the same time as still that American Revolution, the SSR. This was a really cool time.
We could
GM.
not sell those. They were way more expensive than the Corvette. We
More
could not figure out how to sell.
Yes.
I guess because it's Cadillac brand.
Yes. So when
it's got a North Star supercharged in it,
and you can see here, same kind of door popper situation. I've always liked them, and it's funny if you show somebody an XLR now, they think that's a brand new car.
Maybe I need that
I would see that. I mean, I guess it does.
I might need instead of
No.
a C5, C6.
I don't know if it's going to scratch the edges.
No.
Maybe I need that.
But it is more
But
up your
why?
alley with your North Star love.
It is in a sense. I mean, you are a Cadillac guy, but I don't know about that.
It's the spiciest North Star.
You've had a C6 Z06 though, so you've done it. You've not done one of these, right? You've never had one of these.
He's had Wizard had one. No, you had an XLR and you had one, but not a V.
Wizard had a non-V.
A non-V. That's what it
very-
was.
So this is
very
the same 505
rough.
horsepower engine?
No, it's
North
the North
Stars.
Star.
Oh, it's a North Star engine.
Supercharged North Star.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like complete garbage.
They were okay by then.
And
but
this,
they were all right.
they spent a lot of money on these commercials because the XLR V commercial had the Led Zeppelin song in it. And remember, it was the beginning of it, and it was coming out of a tunnel. It was like I said, the GM's advertising at this time was so cool.
I think it looks like a pixelated SLK though.
So C6, we are
not great.
05 until 2013.
Till 13.
That's a long run.
They did have a couple of things by 08. They changed the LS to the LS3. So now we're at 430 horsepower instead of 405. You also could then eventually get the Grand Sport, which was essentially Z06 stuff with an LS3. So I like these because it got all the wide bodies, what they call stuff from the Z06, like the brake duct coolers, the hood scoop, and whatever else. Also stripes, but you could remove the top, which I think is a key part of Corvette
So the
ownership.
Grand Sport is for you in the C6.
In the C6 lineup, that's my
So
choice.
for me, trying to understand that, would that be kind of like where the GTS falls in the 911 brand?
Yes,
Right
absolutely.
in that same spot.
Yes.
A C4S, wide body,
Right in that
turbo
same
looks,
area.
but not, exactly.
And that's why I like it.
Bingo.
It's like I think it's really fun to remove the top. You could get it coupe or convertible. Cool. Now in 09, they brought back the ZR1. So we have not heard that name since.
That's like my dream Corvette, personally, for me.
These are out of this world, and they were definitely like with the Z06 was it's a world beater, and it already was. I mean, even Jeremy Clarkson did the whole thing with 0 to whatever and the fifth gear. The ZR1 took this to another level. It was rumored to be called the Blue Devil. They heard it testing around the Nürburgring. There's one of my specs.
The window under this hood.
That is
Window
beautiful.
under the hood,
Yep.
the wide wheels, the big brakes. It had bigger front brakes than a Ferrari Enzo, and it was the first car you could get carbon ceramic brakes on as far as a Corvette went.
It's too bad that
This should be collector.
It
This
is.
is
So
collector.
still-
this
these still hold their value.
I've been shopping for these because unfortunately this with miles like 50, 60,000 miles is still an $80,000 car.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So it's six figures low miles.
one with 10,000 miles is 100,000
Yes.
plus.
Oh, so they
But
have the gaps too.
Having driven these as well, absolutely worth every penny. This already is a classic, and I don't think it's going anywhere. It's got everything you want. First of all, I didn't mention it. It's now a supercharged 638 horsepower engine.
Lord. Yeah, I
It's
like
the first forced induction Corvette from the factory. It's just got so many
Might need
cool
to sell
things.
something along with the Corvette
Yeah,
to get
I
the 62 to get
I see you.
there.
Look at you drooling at that picture.
They are. It's a monster. This
can't
was
get
the
your eyes
first.
off it.
This was the first road car I'd ever ridden in because my friend Jacob's dad got one of these when they were new, and if you've ever felt that kind of sensation, the Bugatti gives me this as well. Like, but it's just that when something feels so fast that it's impossible.
I made Elliot's friend Jacob very angry.
What did you do?
Yeah, you did.
So Jacob now lives in Arizona, and I'll apologize for this. So Jacob is
He's a pilot.
He's a veteran, but also
Yes.
a pilot. And I introduced him rather than saying, "Here's this brilliant veteran pilot guy," to April when we were in Arizona. I said, "Oh, meet Elliot's friend Jacob. He crashed a plane."
And then kind of just walked like
And then
you
walked
just
walked
left?
away.
And Jacob was like,
It's like the low point of his life when he ran out of
crashed
fuel
it.
in his plane and crashed it, but he wasn't hurt. But then I chose to introduce him that way, and Jacob, I am very, very sorry about that.
You tend to really be good at the old, drop the grenade and just kind of.
Well, I know, but
trickle away.
This is Elliot's high school friend, where he was, the very well-to-do family with the big house and the pool and all that stuff, and the girls were flocking towards him, and Elliot was happy to come in and swoop in the sloppy seconds from that. So
That's actually his plane.
Yeah.
That's his plane.
yeah.
Oh,
But let's move on from that. In case I would have been bringing this up for him. But anyway, that did happen. But yes,
the sloppy seconds thing, yeah.
The no, so this was the first car, the car to give me the. I know.
sorry. Sorry.
This was the first car to give me like the butterflies that you get on like a crotch rocket, where you go, "Oh my god, how is this thing this fast?" And it was like that's what the ZR1 does. Even today,
This is doing something to me. Like this I like.
God, this is just.
I remember I bought, did not lowball.
You actually
I bought
finished the
a
deal.
2008 F250 diesel, the 6-liter that was the worst.
What?
Like how old?
When?
Oh, it had like 180,000 miles on it. This would have been
so
back.
it was a
Okay.
turd.
Yeah.
It was fine. I mean,
See,
it was,
and then Rob will buy because it's a
crap.
deal, the worst spec of things that
just
nobody
stayed
wants. But like, I lowballed him, got so much off, I had to buy.
It
But
might as
still,
well.
nobody wants this crap.
well, okay.
So
that,
what is the story?
that 6-liter which I was told was garbage, went from 188 to 3. I drove it up to 320,000 miles and never had to do a damn thing to it. It was perfect.
Okay.
But the story is, I went and bought it from a guy out in Clearwater, or not Clearwater, Cheney, and he had a big shop. And when he opened up the thing to show me the diesel, there was a blue one of those sitting in there with
And they had-
a ZR1 with the little window. And he said he had just bought it. It had like 300 miles on it, and it was and he might still have it. Like he might still have it. He's like, I'm just going to keep it. He may have it. I know where he lives. I remember
there's
where
plenty
I
of
went.
these out there. It's not like they're just expensive.
The other thing that I love about these, so they all had mag ride and they all had the valved exhaust. So one of the things I kind of didn't mention is Corvettes were kind of muffled still forever. This was the time period where you could have the best of both worlds. When this thing would open up at 3,500 RPMs, it sounded like it was straight piped. I still have a video of his dad. We were rolling next to him, and you just hear him go, "Ooh," and the thing just go, "Whoa." You can hear it when the valves open, and you're like,
Mag
that's
ride.
stock?
I forgot about the mag ride, and
Yes.
that makes it feel so good stock.
It's
Really?
ridiculous.
like in the comfort mode.
Like
It's like
it's smooth.
I seriously think
yes,
it is
luxury roller, and then you dial it up.
Yes, a C6 with mag ride. It's still, and I answered this for a Vin Wiki question. It was like most comfortable, like overall car. Crap. Yeah,
yeah, that's it.
Because like
He's
you
going
see, you
straight
put,
online
like
after
the
this.
C7 ZR1, pretty overstyled. It's a little
Agreed. Agreed.
Batmobile looking. Look cool, but this is
the pinnacle right
good
here.
looking universally, has mag ride. And on 20, I think 10 or 11 and up, you could have launch control. It was seriously, so with the flat foot
Your
shifting,
face.
it's such a good car.
This podcast is going to ruin you. Once we start bringing up cars, and you're like, damn it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Put that on the list. Put that on the list.
That's it definitely. And then I think it had one of those, another fact, because it's a carbon roof, carbon body panels on this first Corvette to do that as well. So one of the issues with exposed carbon is clear coat fade. So they used something that was like $2,000 a gallon clear coat
Jeez.
on these cars. But given people don't leave these outside like they do like an Evo 8 where the clear coat just fades and it didn't have that. But this apparently is like GM developed special clear coat paint just for exposed carbon on these cars. Another interesting model you could get was a Z06 carbon after this, which is essentially all ZR1 body panels without the window in the hood, but same hood on a Z06. So you had the LS7, but and those cars are now going for a pretty good amount because it was a very odd car they only made for like the last year. And you had carbon ceramic brakes and also it's kind of the ultimate track C6 from the factory. Interesting side point. You could also get then later, also last year, a 427 convertible, which was essentially a Z06 convertible.
I feel like Doug has one of these. You know, Melody?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. Her
Oh,
husband
okay.
has
He has
one.
the cyber. He has the cyber,
And it is
gray.
a ZR1, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
that is the-
Doug Matuzik.
Matulowick.
Matulowick, yeah.
Another
Which
car guy.
not a Doug that you all would
I know. I thought you were going Doug DeMuro. I was like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no.
Local Doug. We know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this was the swan song of the C6. It's on its way out now. They celebrated in the best way possible with a monster of a
Yes.
car. So 2014 comes around. out comes the C7. Now, I think these were one of the coolest looking Corvettes. Now, some people might go,
There's two of us that are going to do
but
that.
so it looks like, they had this as a concept for a long time. They even had the concept car in like the Transformers movie. Like they've been kind of touting around this design language for a while. They brought back the Stingray name. One of my memories for this is when you were probably there too, not working there, but in 2013, they brought it right after they unveiled it in December to the Barrett-Jackson in January to sell VIN number 1 to, obviously
Rick Hendrick.
Rick Hendrick.
It's usually
But they
always Rick
brought
Hendrick.
it, and I remember they just had it out. It was red.
See, I was going to Barrett-Jackson every year from 2004 until about my daughter was born, 2013.
So you might have missed that one.
So that's when I started missing because, when you're a high school kid and a college kid, it's easy to get away and do that stuff. When you have family job obligations, it got sporadic from there.
I was still early college kid, I think. Late college kid. But the point is, it was, I remember specifically, I was like, this is so cool. This is one of the first Corvettes they did a, kind of a keynote launch. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
See? That's at Barrett-Jackson.
Rick Hendrick by it?
Probably.
It's always Rick Hendrick.
Of course.
Yep. He always gets
So, because, it was a red on red, like with the cool seats. And like I said,
pixelated like that?
Of course. This is exactly like my memory.
Yep.
No, my memory is clearer
I think
than
they're
this.
just trying to find the pixelated ones now. It's just funny at that point.
No, so like I said, this is a big change. It's still, again, an evolution of the C5, the C6. So it's not completely new underneath, but they made a lot of great changes. Power is now up to 450 or 455, depending if you got Z51. It had a lot of cool stuff. It had the vent in the hood was functional. Corvettes have always had a radiator that is swept back, so the air kind of blows over it rather than through it. And on this year, they tilted it forward and let the hot air come out of the hood so it's not blowing in the engine bay. It's a lot of functioning things going on here.
They don't do a thing for me. I think maybe just this is past my prime, if you will, or when my mind is still
you kind of had
molding,
me with the C5 and C6, and then it just kind of. There's some of these I like. I've seen some that I think done right look ridiculous.
Like I said, for me, it got all of my things because it added scoops and vents to the base car. Now you had to get the Z06 or whatever, and they were pretty muted. This was, like I said, now looking at it, it kind of does seem overstyled. But
this is sort of when I tuned out, I guess, a Corvette until, of course, C8.
C8. Yeah.
So
now the interesting thing about these is they wanted to release this as early as 2011. Now I was going to mention the interior here, but they did a study because they wanted this car to appeal more to younger people, hence the vents and all the stuff on the outside, because they had found out that by I forgot when they did this, but basically in the C6, that it was like 50% of their buyers were 55 and older, compared to 20% of the buyers of an Audi R8 or 30% of the buyers of a 911. They had now done the study as if we didn't already know, that they were like, oh man, our market share is old guys. We need to bring those numbers down. How do we bring the youth into it? One of the things they did was set Audi as their goal for the interior kind of language and quality, which is a kind of a lofty goal. But you can see how much nicer it is than, again, even the C6 as far as build quality, materials, use of leather, that sort of thing. Much less plastic. We're back to a hybrid needle and digital display, but of course it's a modern car, so it's a fully, configurable color display. I can already tell by your face. You're just so don't care.
I'm losing it.
Next.
They've lost me.
Next.
But I don't know, maybe because I'm old at this point. I don't know.
There's just something missing for me too. But I mean, I can't put my finger on it, but it's there. Like it's just.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I got excited about him, and like I said, I'm a little younger than you guys.
I mean, hell, Jake's leaving.
Yeah, even Jesus.
No. So I worked at Chevy when these came out. I worked at a Chevy dealership, local dealership, and these things were absolute spaceships. Because this was shortly after I had started really getting into cars. I was working at a dealership. That thing with the driver-focused binnacle and the vastly improved interior quality was an actual spaceship.
Elliot, so I think you're right, because you're 28 years old, 29.
So they were aiming
29.
At him. They were aiming
there
at him.
it is. So
this was our generation's '84 Corvette.
it worked.
Where we were
so you wanted it. The youths wanted it. I
Yes.
suppose.
Good job. Good job.
I was
folks at
still
Chevy.
This is
reasonably
something you
youthful
liked.
at the
You
time.
actually
The C7 to me is peak Corvette, modern Corvette. Like the C6 is great value. The C6 is kind of a little aged. I mean, I had one. You saw pictures of it. I think it's not aged all that well, performance-wise.
Poor Jake. He couldn't take the flogging of the C7 anymore. He had to come up
had to
behind.
come
I'm glad because you're over here looking
"I'm just
viscerally
coming over
disgusted.
here.
You're like, don't
I
care.
have words I need to say.
I'm like, I could tell you, I was like, Tyler,
you
this,
were
this
okay.
has 1 million horsepower, and you're like, don't care.
Here's pluses. Okay, still can get it with a manual transmission.
Yes.
The Z06 and the Z1s are just insane horsepower, but at this point where it's just too much now because it can't get traction.
Right.
That was the first one I drove was an automatic Z06. It was the first one we got, and I also remember it felt like it felt like a modified car.
Yes.
Right.
That was always the complaint about this generation's Z06.
The Grand Sport and like even the base model. That was the thing. Is the base model was the one to get because it had the mag ride, it had the good interior. There was a speed bump there were speed bumps, and I would put it in comfort mode and I'd go over the speed bumps real slow, and I'd put it in race mode and I'd go back over the speed bumps. And it just blew my mind. It was so much more dramatic than the Magna Ride and the C6, which was still very good, but this was like what the brochure promised. It was two completely different cars.
Jake bought an M2 competition.
Yeah. How's the mag ride in that?
Yeah.
You got to get the CS for that.
So they did not sell the youth there in that sense because then his ended up being getting a BMW or an Audi or whatever.
6
whatever
BMWs
else.
now or something.
He is a BMW. He is to BMW's
Six?
time to Corvette.
What's the C7 peak ZR1
Peak
horsepower?
ZR1. Yes, 760,
Something like that.
760,
Crazy.
768 out of the
something.
ZR1?
Yeah,
And you could
it's
get it with a
nuts.
manual, which is just like
How would you?
It's
Didn't you
a
just
nuts
kill
car.
yourself in that?
well, it's
No,
like
so-
my 599, which has 700 plus horsepower, and it's just like
Yeah.
it's
I will
it's
say
too
this.
much.
So the time when I've driven one of these a couple of times, and I still had my Hellcat at the time, also 700 horsepower, but doesn't even try to make it act like it can put it down. So I was like, well, this can't seem that much faster, 50 more horsepower, whatever it is. And it can put it down. Unlike the Z06 does just kind of feel like somebody souped up a stock C7. This, as normal with the ZR1s, they went so above and beyond engineering wise. You put your foot down in this, it will hook and book. And you are going, like I said, another car that just makes you go, whoa, holy crap, I can't believe the speed I just experienced.
Yeah, I've never driven a C7. Period.
Oh,
I've ridden
me
in
neither.
one
Yeah, me
ZR1, but I've never driven a C7.
They're great. Like I said, the modern technology, still removable roofs. Also, by this point, you could get removable roofs on the Z06 and the ZR1 because the chassis was so stiff.
Right.
So that's a big plus for me as well.
Well, so Craig Jackson came off the bidding stage at Palm Beach a couple weeks ago, and he bought a ZR1 convertible.
With the big
C7.
wing? Did it have the big wing?
With the big wing.
It's hilarious
Black,
looking.
Full Batmobile spec, and I think it was $170,000-$180,000.
Good Lord.
Which is
It's manual.
strong.
That's just a lot.
Yeah, because that obviously last ZR1 stick,
Last front engine,
yeah,
It's the last of a lot of
and
things.
a front engine convertible ZR1, which they had done before. So it's
Jake, can you find a picture of a big wing convertible? Because the big wing kind of works on the coupe, because you're like, okay, race car. On a convertible, it looks like somebody put
it's gotta be bad,
a hilariously oversized spoiler
Yeah.
on a convertible.
So there's definitely collector interest in that as far as it being the end of the front engine Corvette, still be able to get it with a manual transmission.
Yep.
I get it. I guess
We
this is
said
where
that
I
about
start.
the 83 too.
This is where I start to get old.
Well, and they had fun things
82.
about these. Like they couldn't sell them really in Europe because instead of having the clear thing on the hood, this is actually part of the engine. And per their pedestrian standards, you can't have engine work exposed. So,
But-
it's got some
Compared
cool
to the
stuff.
compared to the C6.
No,
This
it's,
must be
it's
good.
gaudy compared to this.
It's over-
to
it
this.
must be
It's
good.
overstyled. But yeah,
Oh,
see, look,
yeah.
that I don't know what's up with the wheels
Nice,
on that.
yeah.
But
Good
the
choice.
wing on the convertibles, it just. I'm happy they made it, but it is a hilarious looking car. And everybody who has one of these is in their 70s. So it's like, what is
Everybody?
that old guy doing with the big? Because can
Yeah.
anybody our age afford a $170,000 used Corvette?
Well, if they are, they're buying
Right.
something like a McLaren or something exotic in that sense. Yeah.
So this is still not doing it for you though.
This doesn't even do it.
this
This
Not
doesn't do
this
it for
one
me.
specifically,
Yeah.
but that
I
ZR1.
get it, and I get why there's interest in it and why they've sort of held as far as their values and such. But the C6 hits me a bit more, and then of course the C8 being so revolutionary and so cool, I tuned right back in when mid-engine happened.
Right. So 2020. Yeah. See, that's a good looking car. I mean, from that angle, that's the press colors.
Good color.
Yeah. And they are, like I said, absolute monster and really this is going into the C8. First of all, to call way back to Zorakis Duntov, he had always wanted them to make a mid-engine Corvette. He made what's called the SERVs. It's like the Corvette Experimental Research Vehicles. Every one of them was always mid-engine. They had him going back to the 50s. And every time it was like they would do research, found out that was great, too expensive to make. They made a second one in the 60s. It was capable of 210 miles an hour with naturally aspirated 500 horsepower motor. Mid-engine, too expensive, we can't make that. They kept making them. Every concept car Corvette was mid-engine, mid-engine, mid-engine. In the 80s, they had one called the Corvette Indy that used the LT5 from the ZR1, only it was twin turbo, all-wheel drive.
Jay can't keep up with the
Yeah, no, I'm just, you don't need to show any of them. The point is
furiously typing over
they've been making, they've been wanting to make,
the test mule.
yeah, they've been wanting to make mid-engine Corvettes since the Corvette was a serious car. In fact, the last car that Zorakis Duntov got to see in development was the C5, and it said that one of the things he noted, he just said, the engine's still in the front, as if like, you guys are still screwing around. So it took until 2020 for them to be like, we can finally make it make sense. And I do get it. They obviously could have made a mid-engine Corvette, but it would have been $100,000. But we have the technology now and the materials and whatever else you want to attribute it to where now you could make a mid-engine Corvette for everyone. I think the advertised price when they first announced it was not realistic.
Yeah,
It was
not even
59.
close.
It was never going to happen.
That was the first car Trek theme was exotics for the price of a new C8
And
Corvette
like I
at
said,
59 grand.
When they did that at the launch event, it was no way, because I mean, look, it's a supercar.
It's better than a Ferrari for a quarter of the
brilliant
price.
marketing.
Yeah,
I mean,
there it is. There's the C8.
Jake makes a good point.
Beautiful.
It is the first mid-engine car since the Fiero for GM, though.
There it is.
See, that's the Z06, which again we went through, but it really was, as much as people, again, this was way more uproar than non-pop-up headlights. It was, why isn't the engine in the front? Blah 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 blah.
No, nobody was mad about it. Are you
There
kidding?
are some old
there were
school
people
yes,
mad
there
about
were.
it.
Everybody over 60.
Tons of old fogies and C5 owners.
Oh, yeah.
They were never
I remember that.
They weren't going to buy them anyway.
Oh, yeah. I remember looking at the boards when that first came out.
This
and
has
like,
been the biggest
They're
hit of
wrong.
Corvette.
I know.
Well, because
ever.
they got the market, like they got their people they wanted. The
They
30s
still
and
can't build enough to keep up with this stuff.
No, the guys who think that are totally wrong. I'm just saying there was outrage. But, I mean, look at that. That is an awesome looking. It's still, when I see him down the road, if I see a red one in the distance, I go, oh. And then, I mean, I still go, oh, it's a Corvette. But I seriously sometimes still think like, hey, there's a Ferrari coming or whatever. I mean, it is a supercar now. Whether you like it or not.
It is. I'll agree with
Dual
that.
clutch transmission,
Dual clutch
no
transmission.
more manuals.
Yes.
The
Engines-
base were like 500 horsepower for the.
They're close. It's 490, something like that. And then, again, if you got the Z51, the different exhaust gave you 5 more horsepower, whatever.
Yes.
But no, and now modern
they
cockpit,
really went with
very
it,
driver focused to the point where it has this big waterfall
see it on the right
of switches.
there. Yeah.
If you drive one, I mean, as a passenger, it's seriously like there's a divider between you guys.
Yeah.
They've always been driver centric, but this one is
Great
like
car if you hate your
hilarious.
life.
So yeah,
Yes.
there's a big divider there. But the Z06 is what I had, 670 horsepower.
Naturally
The
aspirated.
Flat plane
Yeah,
crank
that
was the
thing's
most powerful
sounding
naturally aspirated
amazing.
engine ever. I traded in my GT500 for it, 2021 GT500, and it was amazing. I sold it because I wanted to get it out.
Well, you got to get out on the high.
Yeah, 'cause C6
prices
were
were
nuts.
still
Yeah.
crazy, and I paid, I think, a bit over MSRP for it, so I didn't want to get really stuck.
And
So
didn't
I
they-
sold it
didn't
to Barry
they-
Jackson. It did well.
I was there for you when you picked it up, and that was the first time I'd heard one cold start.
Oh, yeah.
And I still was like, unreal.
Probably won't forget that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
look,
went to
there
your.
it is.
That's your.
Yeah, that's my thing.
That's
There's our
54 right there.
54.
Now, didn't they have a thing where they were trying to keep people from selling them and flipping them?
6 months.
They
6
had
months
a
rule.
rule,
and it avoids the warranty
Yeah, they
and
threatened
all
with
that
the
stuff.
warranty.
I kept it 6 months. I put 2,000 miles on it,
not bad.
something like that. So I put some miles on it, and that definitely hurt me. But I got to enjoy the car. Hypersonic gray was the color.
Good
and
color.
it
Good
had,
spec.
It had the 3LT and all that stuff. So it was a good spec, and now they're a little cheaper. So that's the thing. A C6. What would you do? Because a C6 ZR1 low mileage, and that are the same price. Would you go back to C8 Z06, or would you go back to
If
C6
I'm being
ZR1?
perfectly honest, I would take the 6 because I think that to me looks too much like what you would see in a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or something, whereas that other one is unmistakably Corvette.
That's fair. I'd say it's a tough choice. It depends on, are you buying this to enjoy or are you buying it for future investment?
Right.
Because the ZR1 will never not be worth a lot. I think it's always going to be like that. These are going to depreciate like normal until whatever the bottom is.
But there's so many.
But it's a better car in every way. I mean, this truly is a supercar, as you know. I mean, you start it up, not only does it sound like a loud Ferrari, but it drives just at the limit.
But they've already beat it with the hybrid, with the E-Ray.
Right. They've beat it in acceleration. They're totally different cars.
So there's a hybrid one with the normal Corvette motor.
I would get.
And
because I'm a Prius man.
Yeah.
And as much as the internet's going to hate me on this is kind of the Prius of Corvettes, but in the coolest way possible because it's a hybrid for performance.
Yes.
So they added an electric motor to the front wheels, and now instead of 495 horsepower, it now has combined 650 horsepower. So it's still slotted
2 seconds to 60, something crazy.
2 seconds to 60 because it's dual clutch, launch control, all this stuff. But you can still drive this, I think like 10 or 15 miles electric only.
Now, where does this slot in price-wise between
it's
the bunch?
Still, I think it's still actually might be more than the Z06.
Is it really over there?
They're the same league.
It's a funny thing on these though, because these come standard with carbon ceramic brakes, which alone is like a $10,000 deal. You can still option Z06s with steel brakes, which doesn't make any sense to me because there's a little bit of funniness there, but I like the technology here, which brings us into the car that's coming out soon, the new C8 ZR1, which is bonkers.
Nobody expected that they were going to do what they did.
I was not expecting this.
No, it's bonkers. First of all, I love that they're back to advertising it in yellow. Got a huge wing. And the story here is 1,061 horsepower from a GM product with a flat plane crank.
Right.
It's basically the Z06 motor with 2 turbos.
But not a hybrid, not supercharged like they've done in the past.
1,061 horsepower, still...
if the other one wasn't drivable, how's that going to be?
I don't understand. So with modern technology and even fast C8s, if you leave the traction control on, the car will behave. But that is asking a lot of just the rear wheels.
Gosh.
As you know from owning a 1,000 horsepower all-wheel drive car,
right?
That's asking a lot of the rear wheels.
Yep.
And what they've done with what they did with the C7 ZR1 is they did the limits of what you can do with rubber in a front mid-engine rear wheel drive setup. I think this is all you could possibly do with the limitations of rubber as far
physics.
As this is going to be nuts. I hope a lot of people don't kill themselves, but think about what you're getting. If you look at this where it's slotted to other cars that are even close, the next car that's close, SF90, those are, if you bought a new one, $500,000. This is 174 before options.
It's going to go into a whole bunch of different people's hands.
It's going to be 200, but
it'll be
it'll
for more.
Right.
It's
advertised as starting at 174. And if you just look at it like that, the next cars that are even close in specs are like $700,000. The Lamborghini Revuelto. Things like it's back to being the king of the hill world beater where you're like, it's less than 200 grand and it's got 1,000 horsepower with a warranty.
Right.
Yeah. The fact that it has a warranty that.
Yeah.
Mr. Corvette expert.
Yes.
Great job.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry I pressed you on production numbers and things.
I can't know everything.
I am sorry. But any Corvette on the planet, any year, which one?
That is so tough. Like I said, because
you're car simping for any of them.
I know. See, a lot of me wants to go back and simp for my childhood reasons with a really nice, like 94, 95 ZR1. That's
C4.
Yes, because they were so special and so weird. And like I said, I've driven them. Just hold on. I have a thing for C4s, but the ZR1 does have at 405 horsepower. It really is pretty fast, even by modern car standards. No, it's kind of floppy and it's got its stuff, but it just represented such a special time, both in my life and in the car's history.
So it'd be a yellow ZR1.
It'd be a yellow or red C4 ZR1. But that being said, I'm really tempted, having driven the C8s, it might be the best modern car all around, the sports car that I've driven. There's other cars that do things better, but you could daily a C8 and be very happy. I mean, with performance, usability, everything. So the E-Ray is also really tempting to me.
The hybrid.
Because you really, like, the Z06 is great. It doesn't make its power until it's kind of wrapped up. The LT2 or 3.
Well, I think there's hope for you on the E-Ray. It's coming to a used car lot.
I'm sure.
Near you for 20 grand in
I can't wait.
10 years.
Once those start to fail.
Exactly.
Well, once their hybrid battery goes out.
So, Rob, if you took an Audi to the Stang Bang, if you were taking a Corvette to the Stang Bang, anyone you wanted, which one would it be?
It's a toss-up for me, I think, between Between the C6 ZR1 and a 63 Nassau Blue.
They didn't do Nassau Blue in '63.
They didn't.
You noob.
What?
I didn't mention that.
But you could
nothing.
paint it that. Yeah.
You didn't say that.
No, I didn't.
Okay, what's the best color you could put on a 63 split window?
Silver with red interior.
Well, they silver, black.
Silver, black, white.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, we'll
there
just
is
go
a
with the
dark.
car.
There is a dark blue, but it was not Nassau blue.
Okay,
It's
we'll just
really
go with the
dark.
car then. I would. It's a tough one because I'm a history buff. So if it was me, I love the power, but I think the old school smell, feel of having a 63 split window would be just epic. I just think there's something about that design that is just timeless. No matter when you see it, you know what it is. Unmistakable. The presence on the road is just insane, and they look amazing from every angle. That car does not have a bad angle.
I loved my Nassau Blue 427. Loved it. But I think it is C6 ZR1 for me. I think
This is a.
You're going to have one of these in a month.
realistically, I'm probably going to be happy with a C5 Z06.
Yeah.
Big purchases for me are not going to be happening for a while, thanks to my tax stuff and everything else that's happened.
And your wedding.
So-
and
Yeah, once
and
that's
your
all-
everything else.
Yeah,
You have a lot going on.
Yeah, the home renovations kick my butt, but that would be yellow. I don't know about yellow.
Would you
I
be
know
doing blue? What blue
They
was
made that,
That-
Sonic blue.
The
That was
Sonic Blue
pretty
is cool. I do.
That's
did
probably
they,
the one I
Did
saw.
they do some kind of orange, atomic orange, or Daytona?
I don't know.
Sunset,
I don't
something
think
like
by
that?
then. So it was. They came out in 09, and you could get atomic orange in it. If they did, they made very few of them.
That would probably be the,
Be a hell of a
the color.
color,
Because
yeah.
I think I just
Oh, yeah.
love that
Jake,
crazy.
are you looking it up? That's not quite. Yeah, by this, it's a lot more red.
They did red, blue,
Right.
gray.
But I'd
Red,
see if they
blue,
made that
yeah.
atomic
Probably
orange.
not
It doesn't-
atomic orange,
yeah.
so-
But do you like the darker red though?
Yeah, that kind of hurts
Yeah, I
it.
mean, probably black or the blue
Yeah.
would be good. Yeah, so that'd be it. Okay, Corvette expert.
Okay.
We do this a little bit on another podcast. Doug's gonna rank 1 to 8 Corvette generations.
See, that's the thing. Is like based on what? Just overall.
Overall,
How good?
Yeah.
See,
Are you
and I'm
putting
gonna,
C8 on top?
I'm gonna say probably C8 on top just because it's where the car was always supposed to
So,
be and meant to be. So
I'd
it'll
be C8, C2, C6, C5, C3, C7,
Oh.
C4.
Oof.
You put the 7 over the 4?
Well, okay, no, the first generation Corvette. So no, the 4's got to be at the bottom for me.
Yeah,
and
I
so
think that's
and
okay.
then the 1 needs to be above the 3. So anyway,
I think that makes sense.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
I think I'd go, for me personally, and this is a wacky order, I'd say C8, C4, C1,
Too high.
C1, and the early C1s because of the significance.
Okay.
Then 2, 3, 6, 5.
Oh,
Can you imagine
5 is
putting
last?
5's lowest me, not because of anything else. It's just
It's
like
got the LS engine,
I
it's got the
know,
rear mounted
that's
transmission.
that's what pains me. I hate ranking them because I've loved them all for different reasons.
I mean, we can see your personal affinity for a C4. I just can't imagine standing next to a C4 and a
C4 is the
C1
second
and going,
best
no,
generation
no,
Corvette
that
ever.
one.
That's what I'm saying. It's just me. They are not the best cars,
course not.
but they have such importance
Yeah.
to me and what they did for the rest of the car. They were the first modern Corvette. They paved the way for all the other stuff.
Well, very interesting take from our resident Corvette historian. Which
I know, which everyone's
again,
going to throw out the window. Is like, he likes the C4. He
Great
must not know
job.
anything.
Great job. I think
Very
this is
nice.
other than the rainstorm and to focus on the Stang Bang and things. I think
Yeah,
a very, very solid
only got off topic
history.
26 times.
And be sure to subscribe, of course, to
Yes.
this Car Simps channel. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever else, the Spotify and the Apple Podcasts. Yeah, just catch it all. And next week, it's going to be Rob's turn to tell a story
Yes.
about Enzo Ferrari.
I'm going to give you an Italian perspective on all things Enzo Ferrari, from his personal life to the cars to a lot of the way he lived his life.
The movie
And
was just like a snapshot in his life. Or
it really is.
Like snapshot.
This guy
Interesting
has a history.
Yeah.
And it's going to be quite a story to tell. I don't know if I can tell it as long as Elliot could do a wonderful history on the Corvettes, but there's going to be some interesting stories and some things you're definitely going to say, wow, I never knew that.
Can't wait.
Thank you so much for watching
Thank
or
you.
listening. I guess listening is a new thing because this is a podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll do better because my face isn't in it on the listening part.
Thank you guys for tuning in to our inaugural
Yes.
episode.